We are launching the first ever Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, anyone can play, anyone can win, and everyone will have a chance to take home their part in this $1 million cash prize event, because regular prizes will be available even for non-title players. So how do you sign up and how do you play? First, you go to chess.com/verified and complete the application process. Second, you just throw down on the chessboard and play with your fellow Chess.com verified members. Dozens of open qualifier events will qualify hundreds of players into the play-in round. After that, 32 victors of the play-in stage will be joined by 32 of the world's best invited for a 64-player epic knockout tournament. The final 8 players will head to Toronto, Canada for a live final where only one will be crowned the first ever Chess.com World Champion. So what are you waiting for? Get ready, get verified, and join us in this first ever Chess.com World Championship.
Welcome everyone to the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. I am always honored and thrilled to be here with Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, who will have his best impressions for us today in store. Is that correct, Daniel? And how are you doing?
And I'm incredibly excited to 4-4, the Rapid Chess Championship, it's a Sunday knockout, I always wake up, have my coffee, and then I review my games in Korpov, and after that, I watch games from the RCC. Brought the house, the curtains fall. Slow golf clap.
We hope to hear more from Mr. Kasparov and the rest of our VIP guests today during the show. But before we head into the celebrity lineup, let's take a look at the format, shall we? Daniel, what is it that the Rapid Chess Championship is about, especially what's the difference between the Saturday and the Sunday format?
So the Sunday is an 8-player single elimination tournament. The top 8 players from yesterday's Swiss qualified. The biggest time control difference is that Sunday is 10+2. There is a 2-second increment appended to the time control, whereas yesterday was 10+0. And you know the drill. If the game is drawn, there's a 3+2 game. And then if that is drawn, a 1+1 game. And if that is also drawn, we already have had, I think, 2 Armageddons. So do not rule that out. We have some very evenly matched games which do end in draws. So Blitz, Bullet, and then Armageddon. We've got lots of fun stuff and so many interesting matches up ahead, Anna.
Indeed, this is such a spectacular format, thrilling action every Saturday and Sunday. And so far, the gentleman that has been doing the best performance out of all the weekends we have seen after 10 weeks of Rapid Chess Championship is called Mr. Fabiano Caruana, but Hikaru is closing the gap. Fabiano has been the leader of our RCC Grand Prix leaderboard. Can I even pronounce that word? This French stuff. But I think Hikaru, since the last few weekends have been also, of course, very successful for Hikaru. He is catching up, and maybe this weekend he could take over Fabiano. What do you think?
He absolutely could, and he could take over with a second or first place performance, because second place is 7 points, first place is 10 points. He obviously is a favorite. He's won several of these weekends already, and he has qualified into the top 8 today. Now, he doesn't have an easy journey to make it to the very top, but he's going to be rearing to go, and he is definitely feeling the magnitude of this moment as we have a look at the bracket. But Anna, he is not facing easy opposition at all, starting with the very first round. Jose Martinez, also known as Jospim. He is no one to be trifled with.
Exactly. It feels like Jospim and Hikaru have had their own derbies like hundreds of times on chess.com on their streams as practice games. But today, this is it in a knockout format where there's only one game unless they draw, and then we get to see a tiebreaker, and then maybe then a tiebreaker of the tiebreaker. But you are right. It's not going to be smooth sailing. And the rest of the pairings too. I wanted to point out, for me, I'm really curious about David Navara's performance. It's the first time that he played yesterday in the Saturday Swiss. He qualified immediately on his first appearance.
100%.
And how far will he go? He's the only one who played only once, that he's in the finals now.
Well, I'm gonna try it out. I'm just gonna have some fun on a Saturday. Oh, whoops, I qualified. Oh my goodness, I won the RCC.
Yeah.
No, David is great. Obviously, he's an incredibly strong player and has been for a very long time. And I think he might be a little bit less nervous than some of the other players. This literally is his first RCC performance. So he's just going to do what he can. And he's got Andrei Esipenko in the first round, who I don't remember Esipenko qualifying to the Sunday knockout. So we've got a couple of new faces in the knockout, which is always great to see. I always love new matchups and, but I also love old matchups like Hikaru against Jasmine. So all of these quarterfinal matchups are going to be epic.
Exactly. I can't wait to see how they will end up and who will be the ones in the semifinals and the finals. We will soon figure it out, starting with the match of Hikaru against Jasper. But before we head there, I think we do need to thank our sponsor, because this event would be nowhere without Coinbase.
Okay, Anna, fine. All right. Well, we'll thank Coinbase. The Rapid Chess Championship is brought to you by Coinbase. First crypto purchase, if you're an experienced trader, it doesn't matter what your relationship is to trading, Coinbase has you covered, and you need to get an account. And I always like to tell everybody I've had a Coinbase account since before I've had to read off this advertisement. So I promise I'm not just a corporate shill, but you can earn crypto just by learning about crypto with Coinbase Earn. Explore DeFi and Web3 with Coinbase Wallet. Lots of cool functionality. And if you need any more motivation, you can learn more at coinbase.com/chess, and you can get $10 in Bitcoin when you sign up and verify your account. So thank you to Coinbase for sponsoring the RCC. Anna, we have to make an account, so let's take a break so we can make Coinbase. So I can make another Coinbase account.
I know. We need to get an account and verify it, and with that, you get $10 in Bitcoin. So what's is it there for you to wait? All of you in the chat, on YouTube, on Twitch. I think we are live on like 4 platforms. So a lot of people must have heard this, but we're going to take a very quick break before we get started with the first quarterfinals match. That's Hikaru Nakamura against Jose Martinez. Let's see how their game number 407 will go, because they have played hundreds of times at this rate. We'll see you in a minute. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. Week 11 already, and the game has begun. Daniel, there's no time to waste. What is happening in this opening?
Jose is already worse. He's like 5 moves in. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding, but only half kidding. Hikaru with the white pieces in our first quarterfinal matchup. Hikaru against Jospim, and Hikaru, Anna, turning to his sort of patented knight f3 b3 ready Zucker Tort, whatever you want to call it, that queenside fianchetto line, and Jose opting for an early exchange on d4, which, at least to my old school sensibilities, looks a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, it feels like it's a dream position for white for, as you said, how few moves have been played. It looks like the pair of bishops, well, both have pair of bishops, but white's bishops are actually active and on very strong diagonals with the queen on d4. I don't quite understand why Jospin went for this variation, and this setup, the b3 e3 setup, is not new from Hikaru.
No, he could have expected it. Let's rewind a couple moves. So a6 is normal, knight c6, whatever. But now he played c takes d4, and then immediately knight takes d4. And like you said, this gets the queen onto a great spot where it cannot be attacked, right? Queens on d4 can be really bad. Like if only there was a knight on b8, well, guess what? You traded it. So now the queen can't be attacked. And Jose going g6 and preparing to fianchetto the bishop. But now Hikaru has the very interesting possibility of going knight c3. And guess what happens after bishop g7? Knight takes d5. And all of a sudden, your bishop is hanging. This is bad.
Yeah, it does feel like Jospin might have mixed up the line he wanted to play. I just can't tell why would you willingly go for this capture and then g6 if there is no actual follow-up. After knight c3, does he have any alternatives? Can he support the d5 pawn?
I mean, if you play e6, the funny thing is you still allow knight takes d5 because now the knight is hanging. But wait a minute. If you go bishop g7, and then after knight takes d5, you can go knight h5. And that defends the bishop and opens up an attack on white's bishop. This is a very messy position. Now, white does have this very nice maneuver, queen a4 check. Now, it's all a moot point because Hikaru actually hasn't gone for this, probably because this was a little bit too messy for his tastes. Instead, he's castled and gone queen h4. And I think he's still a little bit better here. But, okay, Jose's position is still pretty solid. I mean, let's not, I don't want to exaggerate this, but I don't like his opening choice, nonetheless.
Yeah, it still seems a bit suspicious, but maybe there is no longer any concrete line. And you probably are right that Hikaru did not like the knight h5 variation, as tempting as knight c3 was. He now develops the knight to d2 to not block the bishop.
Yeah, and eventually prepares c4. So you went, white generally goes rook a d1, and then c4. And if white can open up the d file, black might not have time, I don't know, to play queen c7 and rook d8. Or if black does play queen c7, then white can play rook c1. So in these lines, black often experiences problems with his queen, whereas white's queen, Anna, is really, really safe on h4. It's very hard to attack it at all.
Yeah, it's the perfect spot for the queen. And if that knight makes it to g5, you also have a slight checkmate threat on h7.
Oh, come on. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill? It's not a big deal. It's only a mate threat. Yeah. No, then Jose is already thinking. He spent a minute on g6, and now he spent another minute and a half trying to figure out whether to develop his light skirt bishop, and if so, where. There's no
There's a tiebreaker.
Let's see. I think we might be muted.
Are we muted? Hello? Can people hear us?
Vic? All right, I think they can hear us now.
Oh, cool. I don't know why it cut off.
I wasn't sure if we're both muted or just
yeah,
me or just you, but anyways. There we go.
We
We're
are
good.
back.
We're good.
Welcome everyone to the Rapid
Welcome.
Chat Championship presented by Coinbase. We've got our first quarterfinal match here, Hikaru
Right.
versus Jose Martinez.
So I wonder how much they like. Oh, so there was a ready Nimzovich opening with knight f3, and just go back through everything again.
Yeah, I think it only cut off for a moment. Hopefully.
Okay, both were cut off, but it's fine. So I was just saying a little bit earlier that Jose has a hard time developing his light squared bishop because every single development square has a drawback. Now he has gone bishop f5, but obviously that comes with a pretty hefty price tag. If Hikaru takes, Black does have to ruin his kingside pawn structure, and Hikaru could, for example, take and then go c4.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will do that, actually, if I had to guess.
Yeah, this is the first time he's taking a bit longer, but as you said, that line is very tempting for Hikaru. Speaking of these two players, by the way, you can follow both of them on Twitch. Hikaru always streams his participation in the Rapid Chess Championship and every chess.com tournament that exists on the planet.
Right.
But for Jaspem, sometimes you would see him stream, and today, for instance, he decided not to. He decided to focus on the game, and his channel is offline.
Jaspem looks sad.
Maybe it's
sad.
because he doesn't have his viewers there rooting for him with the emotes.
Or he doesn't like the way he played the opening, or both. Probably a mixture of both.
Must be the case. This is exactly what you predicted, Danya. So can you also predict what Jaspem is going to do?
Oh, I mean, Black's position is nasty here. And it's easy to look at the eval bar. Okay, 0.5, that's not the end of the world, but it's not about the number. It's about, the type of 0.5. Yeah, I was going to say e6 is possible. Jose has to try to get the queens off the board. So Black is threatening in quotes, 94, which would essentially force a queen shoot. So Hikaru, how does he avoid that? I guess he could play c takes d5. And then if knight takes d5, there's queen g3. But Jose in this case could maybe even still go knight e4. Wow. And so Hikaru going knight f3.
Oh, so he doesn't want to go for that line where knight e4 would be possible. And now if knight e4, then there's what's the trick? What's the difference?
I think there's no trick. I think he wants bishop takes g7. Now, if you trade queens first, that's bad because you allow c takes d5. But if you don't, if you play king takes g7, then Hikaru has the possibility of himself refraining from the queen trade with queen f4. Maybe this is not okay. The eval bar is not liking this for white. Apparently, d takes c4, and now white has to damage his pawn structure. So I think Jose should absolutely go knight e4. I think he should go knight e4 in a heartbeat.
And that was his original idea, so he must be just double checking what's the difference with the knight on f3, and if his line is still as strong, at least for the simplification, because you did say, Danya, that he should get rid of the queens. It's his king that is more exposed with the doubled f pawns, so it would be beneficial for Black to head toward an endgame.
Yeah, and he's taking loads of time here, trying to figure out, maybe what he's missing. Because I think knight e4 is a step in the right direction for Black. And if he can get the queens off the board, it's not like the game immediately ends, right? But at least Black doesn't have to worry as much about the safety of his king.
Very true, very true. And at the same time, he's spending quite a long thing here. Is there anything that he could be afraid of or worried about after knight e4? Oh, he ends up playing rook c8.
Which the engine actually likes more than knight e4. So kudos to Jose. And I think the reason for that is that white doesn't actually have that many threats on the king side. I was concerned about something you pointed out, Anna, which is knight g5, but it's a paper tiger. I mean, Black can just play h6. And the knight just has to drop back. So that's not an issue. And these pawns, right, on the one hand, they might look visually unappealing. But on the other hand, they control a lot of important squares, e4. And a lot of these light squares are under Black's control. So I think Jose has solved a lot of his opening problems at this point.
It seems to be the case, and with rook c8, he's putting some more pressure on the c4 pawn. I wonder for Hikaru, what is the most logical way to continue? He could bring in his rook to the d file or c files.
Yeah, rook fd1, rook ad1 looks like the most logical to me. But again, even their knight e4 could be a possibility. I'm a one-trick pony. That's all I think about is playing 94 and getting the queens off the board. That's my only idea.
So are
That's
you
all I'm
saying
good
that
for.
whatever Hikaru does, 94 is still going to happen, or with rook AD1?
94. No, but now
The
94
Valbar
definitely should be
showed-
played.
Yeah, the Valbar started showing even a bit of advantage for black.
And you know why? Because after 94, bishop takes g7. Here, black actually can take the queen. And what's the difference, you might ask? Well, with this rook on d1, black has this additional tactic, knight c3. Okay.
Ooh.
Now, it's not over yet. After rook d2, you don't play knight takes d5 because of knight takes f5 check. You actually play rook f to d8. And you prepare to take on d5. And just look at the control that black has over these open files. I mean, if white plays rook c1, then black has knight e2 check. And this is all happening. This is all happening.
I can't
Wow.
believe that this is exactly what you predicted at the same time, because of your nickname, the Prophet. I should have known that it was going to happen.
Well, I mean, Jose was clearly leaning toward 94 at some point. So, you know, that was his only idea. But now he's got to find a series of accurate moves, starting with knight c3, which I would imagine he finds, because how else do you win back the pawn, right? And he plays it. What accurate play by Jose.
Yeah, and even though he is much lower on time, he has used quite a lot of time to get here. He's on 3 minutes and Hikaru has twice as much. But as soon as those simplifications happen on the board, they already traded queens and he is winning back the pawn on d5. He will have no issues in that position. It's a much simpler position to play.
0, and black might actually be better there, as the eval bar is showing, largely because this rook on c8, I mean, ultimately you might get a situation where black's rook is going to infiltrate to c2, and white's pawns on the queen side, they might look safe now, but they won't be safe at all. They won't be breathing peacefully if the black rook infiltrates the second rank, you know? So, ooh.
Yeah, Hikaru is shaking
promising.
his head. It may have been that he missed this idea with knight c3, rook d8. Oh, wait, he's sacrificing an
Stacking
exchange.
the exchange is Hikaru Nakamura. Look at that move. Okay, well, Jose has to take it. And I guess Hikaru wants to throw in e7. e7, rook fe8. And then there's knight takes f5 check, but then the black king moves over and attacks the knight. Okay, let's wait for Jose to take the rook, because there's no point in making moves on the board. We're about to see that anyway. Wow,
Yeah,
what a
he's taking
decision.
his time. He's still taking his time.
2.5 minutes. I mean, at this point, I think black is in too deep. He can play f takes c6, but then he'll be down a pawn. I mean, that actually is a possibility. You could sack a pawn and claim that your open files, your active knight and your control of the files compensates for the pawn, but I wouldn't be able to resist. Okay.
Yeah, and he ends up
King F6, I
taking the
guess.
rook, as you said. e7 is on the board.
Rook d6 is possible there. Oh, rook takes e7, and Jose is playing for a win here.
Why do
Wow.
you think Hikaru went for the exchange sacrifice?
Hikaru actually likes, I think when Hikaru is worse, he likes these kinds of ideas because I think it gives him actual winning chances. Yeah, it might be riskier for white. It might give more losing chances, but you can imagine a scenario where black ends up losing the f5 pawn. Then white has 2 pawns for the exchange, right? That's a lot of material. And then white's got a 4-on-2 on the king side. On the other hand, if Jose can get his rook to c2, and if he can take at least one of white's pawns on the queen side, with the extra exchange, you should be able to push his majority really quickly. So Hikaru is worse, but he's also playing for a win.
And that's always great to see that both players are playing for a win here. We hope to have a result, but in case we don't have a result, we will have a tiebreaker. So in all 3 cases, we are winning. The viewers, us, we will be the winners. Now the rook d5 though, rook f5 or knight f5 are the threats. Well, mainly rook takes f5 so that there is no tactics, but rook c5 seems like a move that stops this threat easy enough.
Right, then Hikaru would play rook d6 check, and I think what Jose is worried about is the white rook swinging over to h6 and taking h7. 1 minute now for Jose, and Hikaru, as usual, has managed his time excellently. And Jose's clock really concerns me because this endgame cannot be played accurately with a minute left on your clock.
I 100% agree with you. And now that the pawn is gone from f5, it's exactly the scenario that you mentioned, Daniel, that white could also play for a win once that pawn is gone. Now Hikaru needs to decide what to do with the a2 pawn.
Yeah, does he play a4? But if he plays a4, then he's going to lose the b pawn. Or does he go after black's pawn with rook h5? But like I said, I mean, the moment black creates a majority on the queen side, Jose is just going to start furiously pushing his pawns. So Hikaru defends a2 with rook a5. And now he wants to get his knight into the game through f5 to d4. Ooh.
That seems to be a very strong maneuver. Does black have the time to double rooks on the second rank is the question, and rook b2 is played.
Not quite. Just by one tempo. If your king was pawn e7, you'd be winning.
Yeah. With that one tempo, the knight now made it to d4 and is controlling the c2 square.
Yep, now rook c1. Jose trying to go around with rook a1, which I like. Okay, now how does Hikaru deal with that? Because black can also double rooks on the second rank. That's another idea to keep track of. But what if Hikaru plays a4 and then rook f5 check? How is Jose going to attack any of his pawns? I don't think he can.
Yeah, that is a great point. a4 has been pushed. But now from e1 or a1, the rook will, well, I was going to say from a1, you can try to make it to a2, or rook e1, you are threatening to take on e3.
Yeah, I mean, Hikaru could still go rook f4 to prepare knight f5, but you could also see a repetition of some sort, rook e5 check, king f6. So definitely Hikaru, the worst is behind him. He's stabilized everything, but can Hikaru actually make progress now toward winning the game? He might start pushing his kingside pawns, h4, g4. We might see that. Uh-oh.
Jospin doubling on the first rank, on the back rank, but this doesn't seem to be that dangerous.
No, it's not.
Unless you push your own pawn to h3, that could be a self-checkmate soon.
Right. And Hikaru going h4, Jose going back to b2, which I think is the right approach. He should keep his rook on the second rank, tie it to the f2 pawn. Now he goes back. But now Hikaru's going to get his king up. Oh, Jose's not going to survive this with 26 seconds. There's no way. There's no way he survives this with this amount of time.
Yeah, it's a knight and two pawns already compensating for the rook. And there's always knight forks. The h4 pawn was untouchable because of knight f5 check.
Now king g5 looks really interesting. Just getting white's king even more active. Hikaru pushing his pawn. Jose trying to use his rooks to ward off white's king. But look at the progress that Hikaru has made on the king side. And black has completely abandoned the queenside pawns, which cannot be attacked. Knight f5.
It's just such a beautiful position for white. And if anyone, white has back rank checkmate threats once you get the rook on their knight on 5 and the knight on f5.
Love that move by Jose, though. b5. It's the only chance. He wants to play b4 and rook c3. And he's got to create counterplay on the queen side. Otherwise, he has literally zero chances. I still think his chances of surviving this are very, very slim. But he's doing his best. b4, rook c3 is the idea. Hikaru might have underestimated that. Rook c4. Whoa. Rook c4. He might win the pawn. Wait a minute. I mean, he doesn't have a minute, but
10 seconds, though.
Oh, king e8.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, and here comes Hikaru's rook. He stops him.
He wants to walk his king out of the back rank checkmate pattern, so that's why he played king e8, but it was not the most accurate.
And he's going to pursue white's rook, whether it goes to c3 or a3. Now, you could trade rooks and go knight d6 check if you're Hikaru. That could be one way to play for a win. Let's see what he ends up doing. He plays immediately knight d6 check, king f8. Jose is holding on. No, but now rook b1. Now Hikaru is still much better, but it might not be that easy to win this.
Yeah, with that king side, 4 versus 2, it's going to be more difficult for white to actually get a pass pawn. It's only 5 seconds for Jospin, though he has to make a move.
I've lost a lot of these to Hikaru, though. These like 4-on-2 with an extra exchange. You think you're up in exchange and you've got no losing chances, but Hikaru's pawns are moving up the board. He He might try G5 at some point. Jose is holding the fort, staying on the 4th rank, stopping King F6. He's doing a great job so far.
6.8 seconds left for Jospin. A reminder on the time control that there is a 2-second increment. So Jospin has been living off of that increment for the past many moves.
You're going to see Hikaru playing G5 at some point, and he's played it now. Here we go. 3 seconds. Okay. H6, I guess. Oh, he goes F5 first. 2 seconds. How does Jospin defend? King G7, H6. Hikaru, but Knight F7. He blundered, and it's over. And there was no chance. Anna, there was no chance of holding that with 2 seconds.
You did.
I don't care what the eval bar is.
Too.
I don't care what the eval bar says. It's not possible.
I know you even said it when it was still showing black some advantage at the very start of the end game with the exchange up, but Justin didn't have enough time to be playing the most precise moves.
I think people in the chat need to realize, like, I've had so much experience playing Hikaru with various amounts of time left on my clock. You can just feel when Hikaru is going to put enough pressure on you to win the game. And he might not play perfectly according to the engine, but look at that 4-on-2 with your own 2 eyes, and you'll see how difficult it is for black to hold this. White has all these pawn pushes, and F7 is going to be hanging, and you've got to keep your rook on exactly the right set of squares. That's impossible to do with 5 seconds. An admirable effort by Jose, but it wasn't quite enough.
It was not quite enough, which means that Hikaru Nakamura is our first confirmed player in the semifinals, but we will have so many more matches to come in the quarterfinals to decide who will be, first of all, Hikaru's opponent. Is it going to be Andrei Esipenko or first-time player and first-time qualifier, David Navara?
We'll see.
Sorry. Emma, are we still here? I forgot that I need to say we are going on a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in a moment.
Checks. Chess.com is excited to launch its own blue check mark today with our verified members program. And for the first time, for any online platform anywhere, there will be a transparent and clear process to how you become verified and get that blue check mark. Any Chess.com member can become verified by having their account linked to a real identity with a unique payment form and SMS held privately in their profile. Most importantly, Applicants must pass a comprehensive fair play screening in order to get verified. All right, but besides the blue check mark, why should you become verified? First and foremost, all verified players are eligible to play in the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, including regular cash prizes for non-titled members, this massive and historic event has but one cost of entry: your $15 verification fee in order to become verified. Additionally, other verified benefits will include access to regular verified-only events, listing on verified-only leaderboards, priority pairings against other verified-only members, and more. To learn more about how to become verified, if you're watching this during one of our live shows, use the command verified in chat. Or if you're watching it anywhere else, go to chess.com/verified today and go get that beautiful butterfly. Blue check mark.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. We are also being joined by someone new. Is he actually new? Spenny, how new are you to this show?
This is my second day, so the pressure's all off after the first day, but I'm still fresh.
Fresh to bring us the freshest of the chat. You have been nicknamed the voice of the chat, so let us know what the viewers are talking about.
Well, we had a good lengthy discussion about the head-to-head record of Jose Martinez versus Hikaru. Now, I will say they have only had 3 rapid games up until this one, before this one started, and they were all draws. But in the Blitz category, they have played a whopping 482 games against each other. I mean, these guys have no lives. That is a lot of chess. And if you're wondering the breakdown, Hikaru has won 348. Jose has won 75, and they have drawn 59.
Wow.
So yeah, that's so do either of you have players that come to mind as your most most often opponents where you have a good, long, healthy rivalry with?
Danya, over to you.
Well, I mean, obviously Hikaru comes to mind. If you could look up, Spenny, how many games I played against, I was trying to find how to do that. I know there's a way to do that.
There is a way. I'm so glad you asked. What you want to do is go to the any player's stats on chess.com. And this is, I believe, free for anyone, even without a premium membership. So I'm on chess.com/stats/live/blitz/Hikaru, but there's easier ways to get there than the URL. And then if you just scroll down a little bit and type in under opponent, that is GM Naroditsky, yes? Hopefully.
Opponent. I'm on my, oh, yep, I see. So Hikaru, I'm on my page. I'm typing Hikaru.
Okay. And then you should, then
2,074 games.
With one person, you've played that many games.
Yeah. 2,074 games, 451, 321 drawn, and 1,303 lost. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's not too many people can say they have that many wins against a Hikaru. Possibly nobody else on the planet.
No, I think, oh my goodness. Yeah, the Hikaru scores against people is just crazy.
It's humbling, isn't it?
This is such a great. Now I'm going to spend like hours on this page.
We would love to spend hours on the head-to-head, but Spenny, we will quickly say goodbye to you, but not for long. We want you to be back shortly to give us more of the viewers' perspective of the Rapid Chess Championship. And now we're going to discuss the next quarterfinals, the dynamic that is between Andrei Esipenko and David Navara.
All right, I'll keep my finger on the pulse of the chat. See you next time.
See you.
Okay, so Esipenko with the white pieces, Anna, against David, who's making his first RCC appearance and essaying a Grunfeld in his first game.
It is a Grunfeld indeed. We were discussing this prior to the show that David Navara only played for the first time in the Rapid Chess Championship on week 11. So there are so many players who have competed on various weeks, maybe not every weekend, but many, many, many times. For Navara, yesterday was the first time he showed up to the Swiss and he immediately qualified. So here he is, the Czech Grandmaster here with the black pieces of the Grunfeld, still a very theoretical line.
Yeah, and it looks like both players still in their preparation. Bishop b3. White is clinging to this extra pawn that he currently has on c5, but Black can attack it in many different ways. I mean, I guess rook c8 is possible. He plays it. And if White plays b4 in this position, there was knight takes e4. So, wow, they're playing at breakneck pace. Look at the speed.
Queen. It is collecting time almost instead of spending time. And knight takes c5. Castle still bullet mode for the opening phase.
Yeah, and White's got the two bishops. Now, the reason that he didn't take back on c5, I think, is because of knight d7. And Black recovers the bishop with interest. Like, you don't want to give away your dark squared bishop in a position like this, because now Black's dark squared bishop becomes a beast. So David Navara, the first to take his time, which might not be an encouraging sign for him.
Hopefully he manages to recall the line, and I'm also hoping that the sunshine is not blinding him too much. I've been looking at his face cam, and it seems like a lovely weather in the Czech Republic, if he is in the Czech Republic at the moment. I love his username, former prodigy.
Former prodigy, yeah. I'm pretty sure he's still kind of talented, you know.
He's such a strong grandmaster, calls himself a former prodigy.
And one of the absolute nicest, like most modest people in chess that you'll ever meet. So he's very easy to root for.
Yeah, he's super polite and he speaks like many, many languages when it comes to greetings. He would see you at an open tournament. There could be like 100 players, but if he recognizes you and knows where you're from, he greets you in your own language. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. No, he always says hi. He's so friendly, and it's great to see him in the RCC. Esipenko, of course, it's great to see him in the RCC as well. He's defeated Magnus Carlsen in classical games. You know, Andre, if he's in good form, he's totally unstoppable. I think he's a little bit more inconsistent, is Andre, than some of the other, 2,700 games, which is not to say that sometimes he plays like a 2,000. I'm talking sometimes he might play like a 2680 and sometimes he might play like a 2850. So hopefully we've caught him on a 2850 day.
Yeah, I'm sure he hopes so, and good to see that he made it to the playing area. Because from what I have witnessed in the chat, it may not have been that simple.
Yeah, as you see Andre leaning back in his chair, trying to remember his preparation. What does that mean? Or is he just
I
stretching?
don't know if it's about the preparation or he just wanted us to have a better view of the trophies. Look how many trophies he has on that wardrobe.
Yeah, I think he needs a bigger space there. That's pretty impressive. And he's hoping to get another one here. There is no trophy, but there is a rather hefty prize fund for winning the Sunday knockout. And he's got the 2 bishops, Anna, so he still has that. David has just put his queen on d6, defending both of these queenside pawns. And I guess Andre would love to get his knight into c6, but that's hard to do because the d5 pawn will hang if you go knight d4.
Very true. I just wanted to, sorry, Daniel, that I got a bit carried away, but I have witnessed something else in the chat, and that is Grandmaster Robert Hess spawning in the chat. Robert, we hope you're feeling better, and thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Sunday occasion. He's saying in the chat, David Navara also had one of the most epic games of the last decade, his king run against Wojtaszek from Bill 2015. That is certainly a game to look up if you guys have not seen the king run before.
Yeah, I remember that game. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, David has a very dynamic style. He's got a style that's conducive to those sorts of games. You know, Grunfelds, Sicilians, principled openings, and interesting dynamic play. So he's really fun to watch. Now, the move g3 by Andre, I think a lot of people hesitate to play a move like that because it quote unquote weakens the king. And to some extent it does, but he's making some lufts and he's also preparing bishop e3 to f4, which would dislodge the queen from this very nice post on b6.
That's indeed the plan to go after g3. And now that it's black to move, can David prevent bishop f4 or prepare for that moment that his queen will be chased away?
I guess maybe he doesn't even need to, because let's say he goes rook fd8. Okay, I guess that's not correct. Well, bishop f4. Oh, bishop f4, queen b6. The problem is that white's going to go knight e5. And I mentioned earlier the possibility of the knight getting to c6. If that happens, black is going to end up in serious trouble. I mean, b4 is going to hang, e7 is going to hang. It's going to be bad. So he needs to address bishop f4.
And that's what he must be thinking about, spending quite some time here. What are the options when it comes to this plan that you have already showed from White's perspective, how to deal with it?
It's not easy. And I think that's why David is spending so much time. He's already down to 6 minutes. I think g3 was just an amazing move. Now, the engine was showing the move knight c5, which is an incredibly hard move to play because that would entail giving up b4 and then pinning yourself with knight takes c5. This looks really scary. But apparently this gives black pretty decent chances, although after queen a3, yeah, I would not like to have this position either. It's actually kind of a rough position for black.
Yeah, it's gotta be that kind of situation where maybe David is calculating that line, but it takes so much faith and precise calculation skills to even want to enter that line. It looks like black could drop a piece at any point in that
easily
in that variation.
Easily. I mean, okay, so he goes a5, which I think is a pretty decent move. I think we're going to see bishop f4 and knight e5 by Andre. I mean, what else does he do? That's his sort of go-to plan. And a5 does defend the b4 pawn, which means David's queen has a lot more freedom than it would have otherwise had. It would have had to stay anchored to the b4 pawn.
Now it is Andrei Esipenko's turn to see whether he wants to go with the plan that you have outlined earlier, Danya, or does this pawn push change what he will go for? So for bishop f4, very logical that he continues with the plan. The reason why he pushed g3, bishop f4,
right?
The queen doesn't have many squares.
No.
For black.
It doesn't have many squares and even less good squares. I mean, if you go back to d8, then you walk right into knight e5, knight c6 with tempo. If you go to b6, well, we discussed that earlier. Again, white goes knight e5, and I just don't see a way to stop the knight from getting to c6. And if it does, then there's going to be trouble. I guess queen c5 is another possibility here. And after knight e5, you could try the move a4 in order to distract the queen from the d5 pawn. But white's queen can swing to f3 in this case and make contact with the knight. So I think black is seriously worse. And Andre is now up 4 minutes on the clock, Anna.
That is a huge difference when it comes to a 10+2 time control. So a reminder on our format that there is an increment in comparison to Saturday's time control. There is a 2-second increment, but the starting time of 10 minutes is still not that much. You can't really be using minutes and minutes on 1 or 2 decisions. And with 4 minutes versus 8 minutes, this is a huge difference already on the clock.
Yeah, it is. And he has gone for queen c5, which I like. I think this is black's best chance. Black needs to try to get to that d5 pawn, but Andre is very likely to go knight e5 in the next couple of moments. He's trying to sink his teeth into that c6 square, as we're discussing. Let's see what Andre ends up doing.
Who's going to stop him? Who is going to stop him from the knight maneuver?
And here he goes, knight e5. I think David will go for a4, but yeah, white swings the queen from b3 to f3, making contact with the knight and preventing knight takes d5 once again. This is getting nasty for black. And now he's below 4 minutes as well.
A hard position to play for sure, but I'm hoping that since it is the very first appearance of David Navara, he must be super motivated to make it through. And he does play a4.
Yep. And now, okay, so the point of this move, of course, is to distract white's queen from the d5 pawn. So if you're to just blindly take a4, then black plays knight takes d5. And the interesting detail is that after knight d7, which forks the queen and the rook, black has knight takes f4, sacrificing a queen for 3 pieces. Knight takes
Wait a
queen,
second, let me try to understand, Danya. You give the queen up to take on e2 with a check.
Yeah, to take on e2 with a check, and then you take on c5, and you've got 3 pieces for the queen, and all of them are kind of active. And after queen takes b4, the knight goes back to e6, helping the other knight evacuate the dangerous territory. And it's a game. I'm not pretending that black is doing amazing, but it's very double-edged here. Maybe black is doing amazing.
Do you think that David Navara will find this and believe in this line of giving up the queen?
Geez, I mean, well, first of all, he has gone a4, so I think he has something in mind. And there's no other moves here, because if you don't play knight takes f4, you end up losing the exchange for no compensation. So he's definitely seen this. I don't know if he thinks it's good or not, but he's decided to go for it. And now it's Andre's turn to make a decision. He has taken on a4.
Queen a4,
they're going down the line.
d5.
Here we go.
Bottas Gambit incoming in a bit of a better context than the usual Bottas Gambit.
I'm surprised Andre's going for this. I thought he would go queen f3. And now he's starting to think, Anna, which is a little bit weird. I mean, if you're already taking on a4, that kind of means that you've decided to go for that line. Maybe he missed knight takes f4?
Maybe, because otherwise it's strange that that's the moment where he stopped for a moment. He did play knight d7 after all, entering this line, but if he hadn't seen this coming, he might be a little bit shocked of what's going on right now.
I suppose g takes f4 is also a possibility, but I kind of discounted that just because of how much it weakens white's king. And I figured that, okay, even if black goes like queen f5 here, and just recaptures on f8. I mean, black is going to get permanent counterplay against white's incredibly weak king. So this is not appetizing at all. Andre has taken the queen, and here we go. We're seeing that line.
So it's going to be this dynamic imbalance, material imbalance, where black's queen is missing, but it is for the exchange of 3 minor pieces after knight takes c5.
Right. I suppose rook takes c5 is also merits consideration, but knight takes c5 comes with tempo and allows black to extricate this other knight. This knight e6 resource, Anna, is very important. Otherwise, this knight would get trapped simply trapped after rook fe1.
Yeah, true that the e2 knight has ventured a bit too far into white's position and is all by itself.
All by its lonesome, but knight e6 would throw down the whatever that thing is called when the helicopter descends and pulls up, rescues someone. David goes e5. So there's the helicopter, but it's the wrong kind of helicopter according to the eval bar.
Oh, what is it he should have played then instead of e5?
Well, so knight e6 was apparently better. Oh, and this is really cool. So the reason why, if we bring up the analysis board real fast, is the move queen c4. Now, okay, what's the point of this move, right? It just drags the knight back. And then rook c1. And all of a sudden, the knight on c5 is pinned, and white is threatening to play b4. And Andre has gone for this. He's found it. And David is in big trouble. He can't go knight e6 because queen takes c8, and white gets 2 rooks. And the 2 rooks and the 2 passers will be decisive.
Oh, wow. That is a huge difference between e5 and knight to e6, but David did not see the spin coming. This must be something that he missed, because the idea of sacrificing the queen was a good one. The evaluation was showing it just a very complex position. But e5, that's the move that was a mistake, missing the c5 pin, and there is no way out of the pin, unfortunately, for black.
And the engine bears it out. Now, okay, bishop h6, but the problem is that white can still go b4. White can still go b4. And after bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, knight moves away, you get the trade on c8, and black is left with 2 knights. And you know what's the worst piece at stopping passed pawns? A knight, right? And you know how many passed pawns? White has 2 of them, and they're both connected. So I feel like b4 comes very close to winning the game. Maybe black can defend. I mean, you can see the eval bar is not showing a totally decisive advantage, but David has his back against the wall here for sure. I think we're going to see b4.
Closing his eyes to try to calculate here. I don't know, maybe it's the sun, the position, or the sun, or both are getting to him. But what a pity for David. Although at the same time, as you mentioned, it doesn't say full decisive advantage. So maybe his first appearance is not spoiled yet. I'm here very biased because, as we said, Mr. Navara is an absolute gentleman, the kindest, most polite soul you will meet in the chess world, and it's his very first time in the Rapid Chess Championship. Still great that he qualified in the first place, because it's not easy to make it in the Saturday Swiss.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I asked Levon last week what he finds personally to be more challenging, the Saturday or the Sunday, and he didn't hesitate at all. He said Saturday. He said, because it's so hard to qualify. I mean, you just it's a minefield, and you've got an incredibly strong opponent every single game. So to make it to the top 8, even 1 week in the entire season, is incredibly impressive.
Very true. And goes to show how complex this position is without the evaluation board and without engine moves, that Esipenko is still taking his time whether to push b4 or move the rook.
And he finally has gone b4. And that is not good news for David Navara, who is going to have to take the rook on c1, move his knight away, and accept that rook versus 2 knights endgame, where white's got the connected passers that are rumbling down the board at a furious pace. I don't see any alternatives.
No way out. Yeah, I was just gonna say that David is thinking, but there doesn't seem to be. Wait, 93? Tanya, is that possible?
This is really interesting. So we can call up the analysis board real fast. 93 looks very ingenious, but after queen takes c8, knight takes c1, white can actually go rook takes c1. And the point is that, okay, bishop takes c1, queen takes, and if rook takes c8, yeah, black gets the bishop and knight this time, but that doesn't help at all. Again, white's pawns are totally unstoppable here. I mean, you can see b5, b6 is just coming, and black is going to be forced to give up both of his pieces.
Yeah, it's a sad story for the minor pieces that cannot block properly those 2 connected pass pawns of white.
Now 1 minute for David as he desperately searching, and he plays bishop takes c1, so he goes for the original line we discussed. I guess knight d7 maybe is the lesser evil. I don't know where the knight should go.
Knight d7 to try to route the knight toward b6.
Yeah, or I guess knight a4 has the same general concept. But the problem is the same. White's rook is so good at chasing away the knight. And White's rook can just go to a8 later. And the moment White gets that a-pawn rolling, I don't see Black holding this together. 30 seconds also for David. His chances looking very slim.
He chooses knight a4 with a similar idea that you mentioned, Danya, with knight d7 or knight a4, just trying to control the b6 square. But as you mentioned, the knight is the worst piece. It's a nightmare, so to say, to try to stop those pass pawns. I tried, Danya, I tried.
No, it's good. I was good. I applause. Well, the eval bar now seems to think that the position is totally hopeless. I guess it's because of rook a8, just getting rid of the knight, and then rook a8, knight b6, rook a6, continuing to toss the knight around the board and paving the way for White's pawns.
If only the knights were already protecting each other. If we imagine the d4 knight on b6, then you still have a bit of time to block. Even then, it's a bit. If the White king makes it to the queen side, I guess they can give up on that blockade. But it would have been a bit more interesting if there's a connection between the two knights.
Oh, without question. If that knight was on b6, White would have had a very hard time pushing his pawns. But now the knights are not only disconnected, but they cannot even connect. I mean, they're in the worst two possible spots. They're diagonally placed away from each other, which means that they cannot coordinate in less than like 3 moves, and it's going to be too late by then.
It's certainly going to be too late with those two connected postpones starting to run from here on.
Here they go. 7 seconds for David. This is hopeless. A4 is coming. Knight c3 as he tries to chase these pawns around. Oh, that's ingenious. So b7, he wants knight c6.
Oh,
That's interesting. And he wants to give away a knight for the pawn, but then he'll have a 4-on-3, which is not what Andre should go for.
how shall he play this then? Do you have a way to just simply, let's say, go rook c8, guard a c6 square?
So I think he should go rook c8, knight b4, and then he shouldn't promote. I think he should go rook c8, knight a b4, and then he should try to get his king up. So maybe the move f4 to chop off some trees and pave the way for the king. You mentioned this idea earlier, trying to dislodge the knight from c6 with your king. But I think this is David's best chance by far. I think this is a great defensive opportunity that makes White's task quite a bit more difficult.
The only issue, well, I guess is the least of his issues. He's got 9 seconds on the clock, but as soon as he can give up the knight for the pawn, at least there is a practical chance. And it's happening. Knight b4 guarding the c6 knight.
F5.
But what's also happening is that Andre is not promoting. This is what you suggested, Danya, that he should just bring his king in.
And that's kind of a no-brainer, just because he can promote whenever he wants. That Black has no way to stop promotion. Knight a6 blunders the other knight. So Andre has to try to milk the most out of this position, but he's struggling to find a way to get his king even close to Black's knights. David is defending this in incredible fashion. 40 seconds for Andre. This is getting spicy. E4.
Yeah, how do you even bring that king over now that I'm looking at the squares that the Black is controlling?
Well, he's trying. He's going all the way around through c3. But David is bringing his own king over to d6 in order to block the pathway of Black's king. Knight d5 check. Oh, but that's not going to work. King c4. Oh, and there comes the king. King c5. And it's over. It's over. Yeah, David making a mistake there, but it was virtually indefensible. King d6 or rook c7, anything wins.
Yeah, no time on the clock. It's such a difficult position. He tried his best, David Navara, with the defense in this endgame, but now White can literally just give up the rook on c6 and then promote.
Yep, and David Navara's RCC debut comes to a screeching halt. An admirable effort, a great queen sacrifice, but that move e5, Anna, that seemingly innocuous move, that was the decisive mistake. We can trace the troubles to that move.
Yeah, indeed, that moment. If you just want to reroll quickly, Danya, I think we got our board back to show the difference that knight to e6 would have had the same idea of getting the knight out of e2, but without giving White the option of pinning on the c5, which obviously Mr. Navara realized, but it was too late after Queen C4, Rook C1 to notice it.
Yeah, and that's why we watch games at this level. This is what decides a game between two of these incredibly strong grandmasters. A subtlety like this is what propels Andrei Esipenko to the semifinals, and an excellent effort by him. And he will try to continue this impressive run. So Anna, 2 quarterfinal matches are already in the books, but we've got 2 more to go. So we've got more epic matchups coming right up.
Indeed, Andrei Esipenko will be the opponent of Hikaru Nakamura in the semifinals, but as Daniel mentioned, there are still 2 more quarterfinals to be played. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we are back, it is going to be Vidit Gujrati facing Jeffrey Zhong. So don't go anywhere. We're going to bring back Stania as well for the voice of the chat. Be right back.
In a world where only one can be the world champion, now anyone can become a Chess.com world champion. Chess.com announces the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes. With the world's best chess players.
What? He mouse slipped! He mouse slipped!
Against Robert Hess's will, now anyone will become a Chess.com world champ. Hey everyone, that's right. We actually are launching the first ever Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, anyone can play, anyone can win, and everyone will have a chance to take home their part in this $1 million cash prize event, because regular prizes will be available even for non-title players. So how do you sign up and how do you play? First, you go to chess.com/verified and complete the application process. Second, you just throw down on the chessboard and play with your fellow Chess.com verified members. Dozens of open qualifier events will qualify hundreds of players into the play-in round. After that, 32 victors of the play-in stage will be joined by 32 of the world's best invited for a 64-player epic knockout tournament. The final 8 players will head to Toronto, Canada for a live final where only one will be crowned the first ever Chess.com World Champion. So what are you waiting for? Get ready, get verified, and join us in this first ever Chess.com World Championship.
Welcome back, everyone, taking over from Mr. Daniel Wrench, who got me jealous of that verification take. So I got it as soon as I saw the ad. Danya, you're verified too, I believe. Tell me you're verified.
I tend to procrastinate on certain issues, but it will get done. It will absolutely get done. I want to participate in the chess.com World Championship, and it will happen. You know, it's just a question of when I, do it, but it will definitely happen. I've already decided.
That's great news. And I'm glad that you know that you should do something for the verification process, because last time I talked to Gotham, he was just like, but it will be there, right? Like, well, he doesn't need to do anything. It will just magically appear next to his name.
I wish it would be so amazing if things worked like that.
Especially for a verification. Yeah, but right. Well, that's Levy being Levy. We do have a quarterfinal match to discuss because the opening is already on the board with Gujarati against Jeffrey Zhang.
And another Grunfeld. So we've got 2 Grunfelds in a row. And they're actually playing the same line, this Queen B3 variation.
What's your guess until what move will it be the same that we have just witnessed?
Well, embarrassingly, I don't think I could reconstruct the opening of the previous game because I don't play this for either color. So I think we had A6 B5 at some point. I don't know. I think we're gonna see a pretty early deviation because Jeffrey's taking a lot longer. Both players are taking a lot longer than David and Andre were. So my guess is that they're going to deviate. And there we go. C6 is already a new move.
Mm-hmm. Interesting how it is the same opening, but the previous match was just a very theoretical, super long variation. And here, even though this is still theory, both players are taking their time, kind of showing that maybe this wasn't the main opening that Vidit expected from Jeffrey, or just simply, he knows too many lines and he's
no, I agree. And probably not the main opening that that Jeffrey expected from Vidit. Because Jeffrey at a very early stage is taking a long time. Now the way I was taught, and I've never played the Grunfeld as my main opening, but the move C7, C6 is generally to be avoided in a Grunfeld. You generally don't want to put a pawn on C6 because that interferes with the development of the knight. And C7, C5 is the pawn break that you want to prepare in many variations. So C6, if it's not associated with some concrete variation, like B5, for example, I'm very skeptical about this. And Jeffrey is taking a long time here. And I'm suspicious, but I'll hold my judgment until they play another couple moves.
Yeah, interesting sideline of the Grunfeld, it looks like, but I am also waiting to see that B5 or queenside pawn pushes. If not, it is just a very comfortable central pawn structure and more space for white.
Mm-hmm. And I guess for Vidit, the question is, how does he develop his bishops? Which bishop does he develop first? Now, I would be inclined to develop the king side. I mean, I like castling. I don't like keeping my king in the center. But perhaps he's also considering something a little bit more ambitious, such as bishop c1 to g5, or even e5. Ooh.
Very ambitious indeed. Chasing the knight away from f6, and after knight d5, what's the follow-up?
H4.
H4, h5. Who cares about castling?
Hey, watch him play it. If Vidit's toying with that idea, I can guarantee you he's thinking about it. Nah, cooler heads prevail. Cooler heads prevail.
He spent a lot of time with Anish, so I think it's both the dynamic approach, but also very very traditional and in a way, I guess, the more reasonable choice.
Yeah, H4 offer draw. That's sort of thing.
Poor Anish, no.
No, it's I can't help it,
I know he has gotten the artist nickname so long ago, and he still is just being called that for draws when other players may have more draws in the events he plays.
Hey, I mean, Anish did call me out. Well, didn't really call me out. I had a game years ago in the US Championship, which was one of my worst tournaments. And I can swear, I'll find this at some point, but Anish tweeted, so I had a game against Alexander Onishuk where I had a black bishop on A8. So I had a black bishop on A8, a pawn on C6, and white had pawns on C5 and A6. So it was the worst bishop of my life. And Anish Giri tweeted something like, I'm so glad I'm not the A8 bishop. Or I don't remember if it was that or I'm so glad I'm not Daniel Naroditsky today. In either case, I remember feeling like it was a little salt rubbed in the wound, but it was funny.
Well, that's Anish using his Twitter sphere for all the memery and jokes. I love to see when it's especially a back and forth between Anish and Magnus. Well, we know it's the real Anish since his Twitter was hacked not long ago.
Right. He's so funny. Anish is great.
Bishop to e6. Jeffrey is developing the bishop, also setting up a potential discovered attack.
Yep. So don't castle. Would not be very advisable. White has to decide how to deal with that. I mean, you could play queen d3 on the one hand, but that's a little bit awkward. I mean, that queen on d3 is not exactly where you want to keep it. Or you could play knight takes d5, but I'm not at the moment a huge fan of Vidit's 8th move, this move e5. It does give up the d5 square, so he still has to prove this.
Yeah, it felt like when you push e5, it is for what you mentioned, an attack on the king side or something very concrete. You don't go e5, allow black to take the d5 square, and then just make normal developing moves. It usually comes with a more direct approach, right?
And maybe that more direct approach is knight g5 here, attacking the bishop on e6 and delaying castling, and he could still go back to this h4, g4, h5 idea. But he's still thinking. And both players have spent a long time. We're only not 10 moves in, and there it is, knight g5.
Yeah, it feels so much more slow-paced in comparison to the previous game. I think our production team is amazing. By the way, can I give a shout out to everyone working behind the scenes on the broadcast?
I didn't make it up. I didn't make it up. There it is. Oh my God, he found that so fast.
Shook today.
Who was my opponent? Sorry, so I confused it slightly, but you can see that I saw that tweet and I was like, oh my goodness gracious.
And none other than Fabian or Caruana responded to Anish's tweet about your game.
Wait, mainly to have the satisfaction of playing a CB blunder that pushes the eval up 12 points, but mainly to take a selfie with the A8 bishop on the background. There we go. That's what I saw. Anish. How dare you rub salt in the wound?
Poor Danya. We need to protect Danya.
And I was also having the worst tournament of my life. I had like 1 point out of 6 at that point. So it was, the pot shots were being taken.
Yeah, we've all been there when it's a really bad tournament. Not easy to take when there's extra salt added, not just to the shots, but
at least Anish Giri tweeted about my game. At least that means the Super Grandmaster watched my game. I was honored, so I was trying to find the silver lining.
And that isn't the silver lining. He must have been watching all your games, and he was rooting for you to do better.
Absolutely, yep. That's what I kept reminding myself.
Queen to b4 after 9 b6. The queen, of course, had to go somewhere. Never in 2 minutes squares. What is next for Jeffrey? He still needs to develop his queen side.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, knight a6, I suppose white could play bishop takes a6 and ruin black's structure, but he goes a5. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Oh, yeah, you can't take d4 here because of bishop e3 skewering the queen to the knight. And the knight on b6 has lost its support, right? So a5 is an incredibly committal move by Jeffrey.
Yeah, and that explains why Vidit placed the queen on b4, kind of provoking black to push e5, but a5 wasn't obligatory, of course, so you don't have to enter that line. At the same time, it was already not so comfortable with this queen side lack of development and lack of space as well.
Yeah, and you could look at the move e4, e5 as weakening the d5 square, but you could also look at the positive side of that move, which is to blunt the bishop. The bishop on g7 has been taken completely out of commission. And I like how this has gone for Vidit. I'm not sure exactly what I disliked in Jeffrey's play, but somehow this position looks a lot more appetizing than the position just a couple of moves ago.
It's true. It's true that knight g5 changed the dynamics there. But Jeffrey's saying I can chase that knight back and then I will develop my pieces slowly but surely. Knight a6.
Yeah, and the plus side of a5 is that bishop takes a6 is no longer a problem because of rook takes a6.
Mm-hmm. And
So
this knight will be supported on b4 as you draw on the arrow already. I see knight to b4 and then d5.
Okay, so Vidit doesn't stop it, and Jeffrey does not need to be told twice. He played that move in about 5 milliseconds. Threatening nothing exactly. I mean, even bishop c2 does not trap the queen due to queen a3, but maybe Vidit wants to stop it with rook ac1.
And rook ac1 seems like a natural move anyway to bring the rook in and place it in a semi-open file.
Rook fc1. I am not sure that I would have allowed the knight to get to b4. I thought maybe a3 should have been considered, but Vidit not too worried about where this knight is going. Okay, rook fc1. Both sides dropping down now to 5 minutes on the clock. We're going to see a time scramble this game. I can feel it. I feel like this is one of those games, you know, that's going to end in some crazy 30-move time scramble.
Potentially, yes, and also potentially will we see an en passant? There are so many fans of the en passant in the chat. I'm sure that we all know that it's obligatory. Or not.
It actually is, and Vidit knows that too, right? He's thinking about everybody in the chat and how disappointed they would be if he does not take en passant here. And last weekend he had a heartbreaking game, a heartbreaking match really against Alexander Grishuk, which came down to a time scramble, which reminds me of the time scramble that I had against Johan Hjardarson at the
which year was that, Yasser? The tournament?
If I remember correctly, I remember that the Braves had defeated the Red Sox, so it must have been 1973, or was it 1976? In any case, it was Hjardarson was the closing ceremony of the tournament. But this doesn't compare to Spenny's impression. Maybe we can get a sneak preview when he visits us next after the next round.
Spenny, that was brilliant though. I don't know how you guys do it. Our pre-broadcast stream was basically Danya and Spenny both doing impressions and me just laughing along. It was a great entertainment.
That's funny. So you know what was not great entertainment? Is Vidit not taking en passant. Is that acceptable? Or I think he needs to be kicked out of the tournament for that.
Maybe he also thought it was disabled like Tecton in PogChamps.
Right. Oh, wait. That was wait. That happened? Tecton thought en passant was disabled?
He was playing the game and then when his opponent, I think the later champion of PogChamps, Fondit, captured his pawn, he was like, wait a second, I thought this was disabled. This is PogChamps. I thought this is not in the rules. This was disabled.
I can totally see him doing that too.
So funny.
The one thing I remember from Tectone is Tommy Pickles. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was just like, just because it's a tournament for new players, it would be like, a set of rules on this table to make it easier. But like en passant is always en passant, unfortunately.
Right.
Tommy Pickles.
I can see him going wild about that. Tommy Pickles is like, he did this every game. Like he played, like they put the rook up to a7 and then the queen to a8. And he called that the Tommy Pickles. Like he's just like a one-of-a-kind person. It's just funny.
He is. I hope there will be a next podcast because we have learned so much from the players. New terminology, just the ideas that they come up with. I miss PogChamps. I hope there will be more. Of course, Rapid Chess Championship and all the pro tournaments are amazing, but it's like the other side of the scope, and it's just as entertaining and educational.
I agree. I agree completely. And in the meantime, Jeffrey has established a very impressive blockade in the center. He's got the bishop, the knight. He's going to bring his rook to d8, I think, to support the bishop. And Vidit just hasn't, we were joking about en passant, but I actually think he might have done better if he had taken en passant, because now look at the control that Jeffrey has over these weak central squares.
Yeah, and there's no one chasing them away since the c pawn is gone and the e5 pawn has crossed the fourth rank. So what is it that Vidit can do to at least play for something. They're not gonna shake hands here virtually, at least, to make a draw, right?
I think Vidit needs to try to make a draw, though. I think white is worse. There's no question that white is worse. And this is very instructive because black's bishop is bad, but I think that shows you that you can't just look at one piece and say, oh, this piece is bad, and so you're worse. You have to see the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that black's rook and knight are so incredibly active that they compensate for the relatively passive bishop. But I think Vidit needs to be trying here to make a draw and get this to the blitz.
Yeah, and if we talk about the G7 bishop being not the most active, also white's dark squared bishop, you wish that it wasn't a light square and you could chase away the D5 rook, you could do something about the E6 knight, but with the dark squared bishop, that bishop at best can be supporting the D4 pawn, but not chasing away black's pieces.
Yeah, if only there was one move a game where you could shift the bishop up one square and change diagonals, then bishop B1, bishop A2. Look how nice that would be. Whoop, just a skewer right down the middle. But now this bishop is so useless.
Maybe for chess points too. I think we need new rules. I think we need a new set of rules for chess.
I'm over this. These current rules. I'm over it. It's gotten old. It's gotten stale and old. And
it's been a few years, since they've been changed. A trade happened in the meantime.
He's gone c5. So Jeffrey with a very committal decision. Now the drawback of c5 is the rook no longer has a support, but he is trying to open up his bishop, and he has been successful. And he's got the white pawns in a deep freeze with this a4 pawn holding everything down. He's still, I think, in the driver's seat, but Vidit should be able to hold this, I think.
Vidit has a bit less time, but the position has become a lot simpler. So I'm expecting faster moves from here on. At the same time, he needs to be responding to the question whether that B2 pawn had to be guarded and how. He plays rook C2.
Indeed. And rook E8 is tempting here, getting the bishop off of E7 or king F7. And then rook A to D8, trying to infiltrate the first rank. He's gone rook E8. Bishop B4 is forced. Bishop F6, trying to infiltrate perhaps the E4 with his rook. Ooh.
So G3 guarded the pawn, and F4, Jeffrey's trying to tear the pawn chain apart. But also that pawn could make it to F3. Is that a threat? Or it would be...
I think it was a very nasty possibility, which is why Vidit went up with his king.
So king G2 perhaps guard the G3 pawn and also guards the F3 square.
Indeed. And now rook D3 is tempting. I mean, trying to reinforce the threat of F3. But now if you play F3, even if you manage to make it happen, the king could escape to H3, where it is perhaps a little bit safer than it is on the first rank. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it is still a possibility for Jeffrey. He's the one with more time, and he's the one with a bit of an initiative. So if anyone will play this game on, it should be Jeffrey.
Yeah, he's still up on the clock, although he's taking a while on this move as he drops to 2.5 minutes himself. Rook D3 looks very natural to me, trying to get the rook to B3, preparing F3, putting pressure on the G3 pawn, but he might not like the possibility, I don't know, of allowing infiltration. He trades on G3 and then goes rook D3. So, but that opens up the F file, which Vidit does not need to be told twice to occupy.
Yeah, it feels like now white's pieces too can become active enough, and maybe soon we will see a draw.
Okay, draw, yes, blitz playoff. Very, very good.
It will be a blitz playoff indeed, whether for Vasya or for Vidit and Jeffrey. Jeffrey will have the white pieces in the blitz tiebreaker.
White pieces. I remember when I had some white pieces against Ivan Chuparinov tournaments in Sofia. Okay, I played good chess somehow, but okay, then I managed to win the game in very good fashion. Rook B3 by Jeffrey here. We're seeing a bunch of trades, and yeah, a draw is very likely here.
How do you do it, Danya? How can you do so many different grandmasters impersonations?
Well, I just walk around.
Secret?
I like to pace around and listen to interviews, and then I practice. I've been trying to work on a Magnus, and a full disclosure, yesterday I spent maybe 30 minutes trying to get a Magnus impression, and I made some inroads. I'm making a little progress, but it's so hard. I mean, because Magnus's accent, the Norwegian accent in general, very subtle, right? The differences in the pronunciations are subtle. And during the break, Spenny was knocking my socks off with his Magnus impression. That's playing Rebecca Aris, and my performance in the tournament was quite good. But it's hard. I mean, he doesn't even have the same accent as Hammer. They actually have very different accents. But anyways, Rook C8 in the meantime bit it. He's got 20 seconds as I've been running off at the mouth, and Rook C2 is the threat. How does he defend against that? Oh, what does he do?
18 seconds left. He's bringing the king closer, so that after Rook C2, well, actually, what is his plan after Rook C2? I thought I understood it, but well, he did step out of the second rank, so he could move his rook. But how is he going to deal with that?
So I guess Rook C2.
No,
wait, but what does he do?
Bishop B2. No, yeah, I don't understand.
The eval bar is not concerned. Oh, so apparently after Rook C2, I won't make the moves on the board because Jeffrey is about to make a move. So I want to see the time scramble. Rook C2, Rook D8 check. And then if King H7, Rook D7, pinning the bishop.
All right, so you let the pawn to be taken because that would run into Bishop C3. And maybe it's just equal because Black's best is to go back and forth with the king, get out of the pin.
Yes, exactly. And Vidit keeping his composure, finding what was, I think, the only defensive resource that allowed him to save the B2 pawn and maybe even the game. And it's going to be a draw. Jeffrey cannot do anything against Bishop C3 other than to come back to G8.
This is going to be the first draw that we witnessed today. All the previous quarterfinals ended in the first rapid game. But now Vidit and Jeffrey will be playing a tiebreaker, blitz time control right now. There is no
here we go.
break.
Not at all. Vidit takes a sip of water, and he is experiencing some deja vu because last week's match against Sasha Grishuk went into a tiebreaker as well. And I want to say that they went all the way to Armageddon, but I'm blanking for some reason. We'll get some confirmation on that.
Yeah, there have been so many weeks of Rapid Chess Championship. I think the results are just like melting to one another in our heads. I've tried keeping track, but it's every weekend extremely fascinating with some of the strongest grandmasters in the world. And then it's just a blur.
Right.
On the results.
Yeah, I mean, last week was crazy with Grishuk defeating Hikaru and then Aronian defeating Grishuk. So it was a fascinating week indeed. We have a completely different cast of characters this week. Now, Jeffrey with a Trumpowski, very interesting position, Anna, very unbalanced structure.
Unbalanced structure in terms of the pawn structure and also the pieces that are left on the board. It is Black who has the pair of bishops, but double pawns on the f5, and also Black is a bit behind in development.
Bishop b5 check by Jeffrey, developing with tempo, asking Vidit how he wants to cover the check. Knight d7 looks, no, not rook d7. Knight d7 looks pretty reasonable to me. a6 b5 and maybe get the bishop out to the long diagonal. Okay, bishop back to e2, goes Jeffrey. Wow, what an irrational position.
Back. I was slightly surprised, but maybe he knows this line very well, and he just wants to play extremely fast. Of course, this is already a much shorter time control, 3+2.
Yeah, I actually really like how Jeffrey is handling the clock here. He understands that this position is very dynamic, so the cost of an inaccuracy here is not very high. The position will just remain chaotic, essentially regardless of how white plays. So Jeffrey building up a big time advantage to set himself up for success when the middle game gets truly complicated. And Vidit is taking just loads of time on every move here.
Yeah, I agree with you that Jeffrey's approach to this blitz game is a lot more practical. And he still barely has spent any time, just 3 seconds missing from his clock.
Vidit is trying to invest time and play accurately here, but he needs to start moving. He's got a minute and a half. He spent half his time on 15 moves. And can he come back to e7 with his bishop, I guess? Maybe f5 at some point. He goes bishop g7. Uh-oh, but 94 looks really nasty.
And 94, I believe, is the move that Jeffrey will be thinking of here. It's a very straightforward move heading toward the d6 square.
Now rook a d1 to prepare a knight infiltration to d6. And it's going to be really hard for black to develop his light squared bishop at all if the knight lands on d6, and he does. Ugh.
The opening has clearly gone wrong for Vidit, and also time-wise, he is a minute behind on the clock.
There's nothing more tilting than spending this amount of time and having a terrible position out of the opening. He's down to a minute on his clock. This is trouble, big trouble for Vidit right now. He needs a miracle. He's down to 50 seconds. He goes F5. Uh-oh. Queen B4.
Which provokes knight d6. Now the king can no longer castle ever, obviously. And also, how is black going to develop the queen side? Because it's one thing the king, and the other is the queen side too. It's paralyzed.
This has gone from bad to worse for Vidit. And this is really unfortunate. He is struggling in these blitz tie breaks. He's down to 45 seconds now. Knight F6, maybe trying to get the knight around to D5 is a chance. Oh, there's some cool tactics there with like knight takes F5 and a rook D8, but probably unnecessary. 30 seconds for Vidit.
Knight
Wait,
E5 and
knight F5. Knight F5.
Jumping even more because
Knight
of the
takes
tactics
F5.
you mentioned. That is beautiful. And if the queen takes b4, rook d8 is checkmate.
Wow, what a move.
He plays it.
And this was a total collapse for Vidit. I mean, he just didn't find his footing at all in this game. Queen b4, rook d8 is just checkmate. EF5, rook d8 is also checkmate because of the pin. And it's over. He's going to resign. And you can see the disappointment, the exasperation on Vidit's face. He never got off the ground in this game.
It has really gone wrong already in the opening phase, and that is going to be a resignation within the next few seconds. Jeffrey Zhang with an impressive blitz game in the Trumpovsky, not the most common opening, but he handled it really well, very fast, really pragmatic and quick decisions that Jeffrey has taken to qualify to the semifinals. We're going to take a very quick break to then come back and see who is going to make it from the last quarterfinal match. And that also will mean, I think we will have a brief segment, hopefully longer than last time, with the voice of the chat. So make sure to talk to Spenny in the meantime in the chat and let us know what you have been discussing on YouTube, on Twitch, and on all our platforms. We'll be back in a moment.
The Junior Speed Chess Championship is back. See the world's best young stars battle it out for their share of a $35,000 prize fund and a spot in the 2022 Speed Chess Championship. The JSCC has been ongoing. We have a few matches already in the books. It's been as epic as promised. And the next match features Arjun Erigaisi, one of the pre-tournament favorites, taking on the Belarusian star Denis Lazovic. That will be coming your way Monday, April 25th. That is tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on chess.com. Well, right here on chess.com, we have the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase here with Anna Rudolf and Spenny Thompson, the voice of the chat. Spenny, welcome back.
Hello, hello. Danya, all this talk of en passant reminds me of a time, I believe it was 1978, and I was in Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic. I was playing Victor Korchnoi. And I, of course, am given the opportunity to play en passant. And so I move the piece to play en passant. And Victor Korchnoi looks at me and says, "Yeah, sir, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm playing en passant." And he said, "I moved that pawn 3 moves ago." Anyway, that's a little teaser for some potential content will be coming your way.
I'm not letting you get away, without impressions. So you're gonna have to stick around after the broadcast as the game is underway between Serrana and Dubov. How has your viewing experience been so far? As a representative of the chat?
Just delightful. We are honestly really enjoying this dynamic, imbalanced chess. I mean, I think a lot of people in the chat could agree that even though it ended up being a loss, that the queen sacrifice for 3 pieces, this is what we're living for. This is the entertainment value that chess has, is those beautiful dynamic games where any result is possible for quite long up until the game. And it's been some very exciting chess.
The very exciting chess continues. I'm so sorry that the games always kick in and we don't have more time to talk to Spenny. We'll need to bring you back again, Spenny, for a bit longer of a chat, hopefully next time, because the last quarterfinal of the day has just started. Alexei Serena against Daniil Dubov.
Thank you, Spenny. We'll have you back. More impressions. We need more impressions on air for sure.
Maybe we might get a little teaser. Maybe you know who this is, but either way, we'll see it later.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Magnus.
That is out of this world. That's so impressive. I mean, Magnus is maybe the hardest player to nail down.
I can't wait to see maybe like an improv battle between you and Spenny, and the two of you just throwing impersonations at each other, kind of like a rap battle, but it's an impersonation battle.
I would love that. I think Spenny has a leg up on me, but I do my best. That would be something
to look forward to. And chess.com, please do organize it.
Well, speaking of fun, I think Dubov is already having a good amount of fun in this position. It's another Grunfeld. This is apparently, I didn't get the memo about this RCC being Grunfeld themed.
It does look like that they know something that we don't.
And what happened here? Well, Alexei going for the H4 line, which has been very fashionable recently. Daniil going for C5, striking in the center. Now, this I know is basically the main line. D takes C5 and Bishop E6. I'm just not going to comment on these moves. These are above my level. Knight D4 castles. Now, knight takes C6, F takes C6 would have opened up the F file. So Alexei deciding on E3, but this gives Dubov the chance to go Bishop G4 to attack White's queen. And after the Bishop trade, here come Black's pawns. And a E5, D4, D3. And Dubov has driven a massive pawn wedge into White's position. I don't like what Alexei is doing at all.
Yeah, it was going to be just one of those theoretical Grunfelds that can horribly go wrong if you don't recall the line. And I think that's what happened to Alexei. The Grunfeld is a very theoretical opening, of course, analyzed to the extreme depths, but it feels like he confused something, forgot something, went wrong, and now it has gone so wrong that D3 pawn is extremely annoying in White's camp, and Black has an advantage after only a few moves.
Yeah, and the problem is just that after Black plays E4, to add insult to injury, White's bishop is terrible. And if White ever castles kingside, White's going to have to kingside. White's going to have to reckon with the weakness of the H4 pawn. So the eval bar, might be overstating things just a little bit. White is still up a pawn, but I am no fan of White's position, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely not want to be in Alexei's shoes in this position either. And I don't know what is going to be his plan for development, but Dubov is taking quite some time here.
I think he's disconnected. You can see that red bar.
Oh,
he's back. He's back. And he's got knight c6.
At least it was in the rapid game where he disconnected, and now in blitz or bullet.
Yeah, bullet would be quite a bit worse. And he's delaying e4. I feel like he thinks that there's no hurry in playing e4. Instead, he prioritizes his development, which is a reasonable approach, I think.
Bishop to d2. Makes sense also, of course, for Alexei that you want to try to develop that bishop and maybe make it to c3.
Yeah, the b5 knight can always jump into d6 at some point. And bishop c3 is especially good if black plays d4, because it would really disarm black's dark squared bishop.
So what's next for Dubov? We have praised his position, this d3 pawn being a really strong pawn in White's camp, but what is the setup he should go for, and what is the plan?
Queen e7 is what he plays, and my guess is that he wants to put a rook on d8 in order to protect the d3 pawn. And the big question to me is whether he will put a knight on e4. So the move knight e4 after rook a d8 looks very enticing, or will he resort to the sort of traditional idea and play e4? I think that's going to be the question that he's going to try to answer on the next move, depending on what Alexei does. If Alexei puts a knight on d6, Anna, I think Dubov's idea might be to undermine the knight with a move b7, b6.
That seems very logical to make sure that the knight will not hang out on d6 for too long. The octopus knight could be very strong, but if you undermine it, it suddenly has nowhere to go other than going back.
Right. And giving up the c5 pawn. So decision time for Alexei, who goes h4, h5. Wow.
Right.
Stacking a pawn of his own.
And
Let's
is
go.
it the pawn, or is it more than a pawn? If knight takes h5, will we see rook takes h5 too, or is it too much?
That would be nuts. I mean, he's played h5, so having said A, maybe he wants to say B. But my guess is that he wants a combination of a couple of different things. Knight takes h5, maybe he'll want knight d6. And try this on for size. Knight h5, knight d6. If we bring up the analysis board here, if Dubov plays b6 now, then shush, Alexa. Then there's knight f5 possibilities.
Yes,
See, now I got distracted.
Please stop talking to Alexa.
I don't know what Alexa wants from me. I'm just commentating a tournament, and here she is running off at the mouth. Maybe an exchange tech now could be interesting. G takes h5, queen takes h5, and the knight jumps over to f5. Anna, this could get really scary for black over on the king side.
I like it. I like that exchange sacrifice and h5 changing completely the nature of the game that looked like it is favoring Dubov, and the bar still shows advantage for black. So this might not be objectively a good way of playing, but it certainly creates counter chances and makes it more difficult for Dubov to find a straightforward, precise best line.
And look at Dubov's clock. He's down to 4 minutes, 45 seconds. And given his connection, I'm a little bit worried about a time scramble situation, because the moment he disconnects with 10 seconds left, you know what happens then. So Daniil has to make a decision here, but I can't blame him for thinking knight takes h5 is genuinely scary. That h file, if it opens up, Alexei is actually using to his advantage the fact that he has not castled yet.
He is, and with that time advantage on the clock, having such a sharp and messy middle game on the board, I think now Alexei has the better practical chances, even though the bar is saying that he should not have much of a hope here other than trying to defend.
Jeez, 4 minutes now for Dubov. He's down 4 minutes on the clock. He's got 1 bar of connection. And I'm curious what his other candidate moves are here. Maybe knight e4 is another move he could consider playing. I just think he needs to make a decision. I mean, any decision. Because with every passing second, this is growing more concerning.
Yeah, hoping that he's still with us and it's not that his internet left him again. The bar certainly is very low for his connection, so I'm just hoping that he's able to continue making moves on the board.
Now it's back. So knight e4 is played. I really like that move. I think it's a very good practical move. Because if white can't open the H file, he says, yeah, by all means. But the price tag is something white cannot afford, because when the F file opens, the pressure on F2 is going to grow unbearable. So Alexei trying to trade knights here with knight d6.
And giving up a pawn that way, so he's giving back his extra pawn.
E4, so stopping Dubov from playing e4, but obviously weakening the d4 square in return. No, this is still nasty for white. Real nasty.
What is he going to do now? He does have the time to think about it, but it's not an easy one, as you mentioned. Dubov seems to have found the best reaction to this h4, h5 push, and white's aggressive idea.
Well, believe it or not, I suppose white could castle queenside here. And that might be one way to get white's king to safety. And in fact, I think that is a serious issue that Dubov has to concern himself with. But the move d2 check here, I don't know why, but it seems right to me.
What makes it right? What do you think?
Well, I feel like d2 check, if bishop takes d2, then there might be rook takes d2 and like queen b4 maybe. Okay, the eval bar is not totally bearing this out, but it could be something to explore. And if knight takes d2, I was thinking of throwing the knight into d4. And all of this is to discourage white from castling queenside. But maybe these measures are a little bit too drastic as Dubov drops to 2.5 minutes. But that's definitely what he's trying to deal with, without question.
So therefore, he is spending quite some time, but he doesn't have the luxury to spend minutes and minutes with only 2.5 minutes left on the clock. It's 7.5 minutes for Alexei Sarna. 5-minute gap in the rapid game that starts with 10 minutes is huge.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. 2 minutes now for Daniel as he's continuing. Bishop knight d4. Knight d4? But okay. What if white plays bishop takes d4 and then castles? What is exactly what is the catch here?
Maybe that's just fine. Our evaluation number 2 is questioning whether knight d4 was the right choice.
Bishop takes d4. Alexei doesn't need to be told twice. A d2 check intermezzo. So he does go for a d2 related idea. Ooh, that's a very interesting move, because now knight takes d2, rook takes d4, and black crashes through down the d file.
And that's why he was calculating when to push d2, and he decided that with this move, the white cannot avoid the opening of the d file.
And the thing is, white could play king d1, tucking the king in behind the pawn, but that does not seem like a very reassuring defensive construction. That pawn on d2, it's scary.
Very, very scary.
Big choice to be made here for Alexei. He goes the other way, king f1, maybe eventually going for g3 and king g2, kind of castling by hand.
Yeah, that seems more promising than a king on d1, but he did keep the pawn on d2 alive for now. He might be taking it now here, so that the pawn on d4 was already captured with black's pawn and the d file is not open.
Right. So now he is up a pawn, but rook e6, Dubov. I thought rook b6 might have been a little more promising, hunting for that b2 pawn, but he goes rook e6. Man, white's position is still very unenviable. Rook h3, though. Alexei activating his rook. Trying his best to hold the fort. And ooh, here comes the queen.
Oof, if you have to play queen d1 to keep things under defense, it's not a good sign.
Yeah,
but he's holding on.
Managing. He's still holding on. And 155 for Dubov now as he tries to open up the king side in the center. A very risky move, but he's trying to get his rook into e2, I think.
So if e takes f5, rook e2 immediately.
Oh, but I think that might fail to rook takes d3.
Oh.
And now if you play rook takes d2, thinking, oh, I can just take on d2. White takes on d8. And white is the one who uses the X-ray in his favor. And this is happening. He takes F5 has been played. Rook E2 has been played. And I think Alexei has to play Rook takes D3.
He doesn't have any other move, does he?
But there's Rook takes F2, maybe?
Okay, Rook D3, Rook F2, and everyone sacrifices a piece or two, and it keeps being hanging rooks everywhere. Rook takes F2 after King takes F2, Rook takes D3. That pin seems really nasty.
Uh-oh, and King E2 apparently is the only move. But how scary is that? And he plays it. I mean, Alexei with no other choice. You cannot give up the knight here. But this looks like that king could get caught in a mating net in a heartbeat.
Yeah, delayed bomb cloud with open E and D files doesn't seem to be that good.
No, it doesn't. Rook, but where does Dubov's rook go? And Daniel is still down 4 minutes on the clock. Somehow Alexei has preserved his time advantage all throughout this time.
Impressive, his time management, or maybe it just shows that Dubov has been spending a long time also disconnecting from time to time. So hopefully he's not going to disconnect now within the final minute.
Now there's a lot more at stake. The rook has to drop back, and then Alexei could try to get his queen out from under the pin with queen D1 to C2. Let's also not forget that white is up 2 pawns. So if white somehow consolidates, the material advantage could ultimately come back to bite Daniel as he drops to below a minute on the clock. Still not moving.
This is a serious time trouble approaching when it comes to 5.5 minutes versus half a minute.
Rook D4. D4, rook D4, rook D4. Now Alexei could play queen C2. There is no immediate rush. I don't know if black has a clear threat. I guess queen E7 check might be a very nasty idea. I don't know if it's technically a threat. I would consider queen C2 though. That looks like the natural move to me.
It's gotta be definitely one of the candidate moves that Alexei is considering. Any other moves you think that white will be looking at here?
I mean, I don't see anything else off the top of my head. I don't know if you can get away with F takes G6. My vote, okay, he goes queen E1. So he finds a different way to unpin himself.
And he might want to be moving the knight away, but then the C4 pawn is unprotected. You can't just do that.
And now queen E7 check, king F1 offers the queen trade and gets the white queen in position to infiltrate to E6 and create an attack of its own. Dubov down to 30 seconds.
He plays queen to D6 to maintain the pressure over the D2 knight.
Now there's rook D1. And how does Dubov continue the initiative? He might lose this game. He might lose this game. He's got 23 seconds now. Uh-oh. Knight F3 is coming. Queen H2. And that's a blunder. King F1, I think. Or no, then the queen H1 check.
So
Knight
the
F3.
version was a blunder, but what is the idea? Knight F3, queen G2, king... Wait a second. What's
Apparently it is knight
messy.
F3.
Knight F3, allowing queen takes G2 check, and then...
Pushing the king up to E3.
King E3 to attack the rook.
So let me make these moves really quickly. King E3 attacking the rook. No checks. No checks. And after the trade, he's played it. He's found it. And there is no way to stop queen D8. White's going to win the game. He's done it. Unbelievable.
And the king is already on E3. As you showed it, Danya, in the line you analyzed for us, there is no way out for Dubov.
It's made. Rook
What
D8 check, and you can take the bishop, and now black's position has officially collapsed. But look at the time management for Alexei. I mean, he has been so 4 minutes. Okay, even better. Queen D1, and Dubov's going to resign here. There's no stopping all of the threats it's made in 2. Queen D7 and Queen E6. Or this. Wow. A heartbreaker for Daniel, who jumped out to such a good position, but took a little bit too long there.
He also jumped out of the call. I understand he's not happy with how the game went. It was a very complex game, and it seemed very promising for black with that pawn on D3, but it was very messy, too messy to be playing it with no time on the clock.
Yeah, and those internet problems, they definitely exacerbated things. And Alexei is such a great practical player. He's shown time and time again how capable he is of pulling things out in dubious positions as he makes his way to the semifinals, and he is our final semifinalist. The matches are set. It's Hikaru against Esipenko and Alexei against Jeffrey Zhang. Anna, two very, very juicy matchups indeed.
And we will need to take just a very quick break before we jump into the first semifinal that you have mentioned. It's going to be Hikaru Nakamura facing Andrei Esipenko. Don't go anywhere. We shall see whether Hikaru can take on the overall standings for the Grand Prix, or will it be Esipenko who knocks out Hikaru? Be right back.
In a world where only one can be the world champion, now anyone can become a Chess.com world champion. Chess.com announces the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes. With the world's best chess players.
What? He mouse slips. He mouse slips.
Against Robert Hess's will, now anyone will become a Chess.com world champ. Hey everyone, that's right. We actually are launching the first ever Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, anyone can play, anyone can win, and everyone will have a chance to take home their part in this $1 million cash prize event, because regular prizes will be available even for non-title players. So how do you sign up and how do you play? First, you go to chess.com/verified and complete the application process. Second, you just throw down on the chessboard and play with your fellow Chess.com verified members. Dozens of open qualifier events will qualify hundreds of players into the play-in round. After that, 32 victors of the play-in stage will be joined by 32 of the world's best invited for a 64-player epic knockout tournament. The final 8 players will head to Toronto, Canada for a live final where only one will be crowned the first ever Chess.com World Champion. So what are you waiting for? Get ready, get verified, and join us in this first ever Chess.com World Championship.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. And also welcome back to our Spenny segment. Spenny, finally, we have a bit more time to talk to you.
Yes, we can catch our breath and really get into some deep thinks here. So before the break, we were talking about disconnections, which can sometimes happen in chess. We were seeing Dubov's, the number of bars for his connection kind of going up and down. There's a lot of things outside of our control. In a perfect world, nobody would get a disconnection, but unfortunately, that is a part of online chess. So I was asking the chat, how do you feel when your opponent disconnects and you get a win from that? First, I'll ask the question to you two.
Anna?
Oh, I have not had a situation, because when I competed, it was over the board. But I do think that for me, one of the most memorable DCs and how the player reacted was when Magnus won a game against Dingliren because of the disconnection, and he just gave it back the next game. It was a match.
Right, I remember that.
In the Magnus Tour, and he immediately gave back the point in the next game because he didn't want to have that advantage. I thought that was a beautiful gesture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah,
I agree completely. I mean, I like winning, I guess, and to me that's the top priority. So, but obviously different wins produce different levels of satisfaction, and I don't think anybody ever feels good about a win by disconnection. At the same time, there are certain things that are an aspect of online chess, like mouse slips, wins by disconnection. Those things just kind of happen, and I think everybody just kind of accepts it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one could make the case that a mouse slip is still kind of the player's fault, even if it wasn't intended, whereas a disconnect is truly out of your control. But interestingly enough, the chat, many members are totally fine with the win by disconnection. They will win at all costs.
Right.
Emalera says nothing is sweeter. Strantz says, how does it feel to win on disconnection? Like honest work. And Norpelman says, I'll take the points. And Four Locos for breakfast. That's a great name. Says it feels like a G. So maybe there could be a little tongue in cheek happening in the chat, but they're all quite okay with winning that way.
Interesting to hear the chat's thoughts, and a W is a W.
That is true.
That's true. W is a W.
There's a certain satisfaction in that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also the factor of if you win on disconnection, but you were clearly winning anyway, and maybe the disconnection is just a poor sport walking away from the board. Those feel fine too. Yeah. I find I don't even really get mad that they're wasting my time. Those 30 seconds I'm going to enjoy because I know I have a nice big W coming on my record soon.
I fully agree with that the second statement, that if you're already winning and your opponent disconnects, that's just poor sportsmanship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the other way around, if your opponent is completely winning and then they disconnect, heartbreaker. But my elo needs it, so.
I feel really bad for them, but it's always, of course, depends on the context, and hopefully it will not happen to more of the players in the Rapid Chess Championship, because they need to rely on a stable connection here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some factors outside of our control, which we won't get into too much, but there might need to be some VPNs happening. There's some additional barriers to entry for a seamless chess experience here, unfortunately.
That will be definitely the case for our upcoming match 2. That is going to be Hikaru Nakamura versus Andrei Esipenko. Spending any predictions from the viewers, or what has it been like in terms of who are they rooting for?
Well, in any chess stream, there's always going to be some Hikaru stans. He's got a huge fan base, so of course, a lot of people behind him there. And the numbers don't really lie either. He's got the better elo. Let's quickly check the head-to-head record. Mind you, Rapid and Blitz are totally different things, but let me just look up the.
Yeah, I haven't seen them play too much head-to-head Blitz. I'm curious if they've ever played any matches. I mean, obviously, they've played over the board, and they played in the FIDE Grand Prix recently, and Hikaru won. I mean, he drew that crazy game against Esipenko to qualify to the next stage. That's basically one of the main things that got Hikaru into the candidates. And then he won that game with the black pieces again in a dubious position. So for Andre, he has to not let that get to his head.
Oh, yeah. I feel like this is kind of a universal thing beyond chess and any sport. You really can't let the losses get to you. You have to keep the games in the past out of the past. I mean, you can learn from your mistakes, but you can't let that feeling of a loss linger too long. You have to have a short memory in that sense.
Right.
Very true. And also the head-to-head scores and just personal rivalries. It feels like for Hikaru, that was a difficulty too a few years back against Magnus, because he kept having good positions against Magnus, but the results were uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
That was before the Magnus story. I think he corrected it since.
Sure.
The psychological side of chess truly is very important too. And we shall see whether Andrei Esipenko can put it aside, can forget about the Grand Prix and have a good game against Hikaru. He has to defend the black pieces first. Sveni, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to have you back soon for another segment.
All right, excited.
Thank you, Sveni.
Cheers, take care.
Then you take us through the opening. We see a bishop on b2, a pawn on e3, but now there's a double fianchetto coming in.
And Hikaru with the same opening that he played last week against Jeffrey Zhang with the double fianchetto. So he's varied. I mean, he again plays knight f3, b3, but now he fianchettos the other bishop as well. And now he goes d3. So it's an interesting decision by Andre to put his bishop on d6. The drawback of that is that e4, if it comes with tempo will obviously win a piece. My guess is that Andre wants to play e5 at some point and transpose the game into some sort of almost a reverse hippo kind of structure.
Yeah, it is one of the, can we say, trademark openings of Hikaru recently. He does go for e3, b3 quite often, but the double fianchetto is not something that he always chooses. How much of a surprise do you think this has been for Esipenko? Not the e3, b3, but that also that the other side is fianchetto too, the king side.
I think it's so hard to prepare for Hikaru in general because he does play this knight f3 reliably, but he plays a lot of different move orders within the same general system, right? He plays knight f3, b3, e3, and then he'll play knight f3, b3, c4. Now he'll play knight f3, b3, g3. So I think what Andre probably did is he chose an overall setup to play. He said, this is where I'm going to put my pieces, essentially regardless of how Hikaru develops. And I think he's done that, but now the time has come for him to make a couple of slightly more committal decisions. One of them is, does he push the e-pawn? And there's our answer. He does. And I like the way he's handled the opening. I think this is as good of a system as any.
Yeah, and a very flexible approach. And after e5, he's the one with more space. So we shall see how Hikaru will react. Is he going to be aiming to push any of his central pawns or the c-pawn? But the c-pawn cannot be pushed because of the d3 pawn being vulnerable. So what's the right reaction from White's perspective to this e5, d5 pawn structure?
Well, there's a typical idea of meeting that at the top with e4, but currently that gives up a pawn. So you could prepare e4 with something like knight h4. You could play a move like knight h4, kicking the bishop away, and then e3, e4. So that's one thing that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. I really don't see anything other than that. I mean, c4 is also common in such positions, but not specifically here because d3 hangs. He does go e4 immediately. So I guess he's, I think I see what his idea is. So de, knight e4. He wants to play knight h4 now. And the key detail is that b7 is going to hang at the end of that line.
And that's the pawn that he'll be winning back. So the e pawn falls, but the b7 pawn will drop. And this long diagonal for the bishop is, of course, a beautiful spot for White's bishop.
Yes, that's exactly right. So Andre, he's taken once, and I don't think he's going to take twice. I think he's going to drop his bishop back to h7. But in that case, Hikaru with a very nice setup at this point. I mean, queen e2, rook d1, knight c4. This is looking pretty pleasant for White already. So another successful knight f3, b3 opening by Hikaru. It seems like nobody is able to find a satisfactory response to that, no matter how many times he plays it.
And it's crazy when it comes to how solid this setup is, the e3, b3. Usually you would think, if anyone, Black has more of an initiative, at least more space at the start of the opening. But no one really has found the right counter to it. Doesn't mean that Hikaru is winning. The evaluation bar is very happily at about 50%. But now it is decision time for Esipenko, where to place the bishop or just go for the trade that you have mentioned. So he's winning the e pawn, but will give up the b7 pawn.
Okay, so I was wrong. He does take on e4. And I guess the reason he does is because he wants the superiority in the center. I mean, e4 was white's center pawn, and black is going to have a bit of an edge in the center. On the other hand, if Hikaru goes down the line that we discussed, then black is going to have a damaged queenside pawn structure. So the position is going to be a little bit more double-edged. And the more I look at it, the more I like Andrei's choice. I think he was just slightly worse if he had moved his bishop. And at least now the position is a little bit more spicy.
Mm-hmm. Hikaru is thinking now after knight takes e4. Isn't it that knight h4 was his idea, or is there an alternative here, Danya?
I think it was his idea originally. There might be knight takes e5 here. No, I don't think it works. I don't see an alternative off the top of my head, and I think he was just double checking things. He does go knight h4. Now the question is, where will Andrei put his bishop? My guess is he'll probably go bishop h7. That's the sort of standard move in such positions.
He's taking his time to pick a square for the bishop. Wherever he goes, Hikaru will be winning the pawn back on b7.
Right. 6 minutes and a half now for Andrei. He's playing pretty slowly, but time pressure obviously still not in the discussion.
He does place the bishop on h7, as you suggested, Danya, and now after rook b8, it is Hikaru has to retreat. Where would you go with the bishop?
Well, I mean, I'd probably go back to g2. And generally, when you fianchettoed your bishop, you got to be very careful when you move the bishop outside of its fianchettoed square because of how many weaknesses surround the move g3. So he's brought it back to g2. He's got to be a little bit cautious about his knight because black could throw in e4 at some point, and he's going to be threatening some g5 shenanigans. Obviously, very, very dangerous with white's other bishop also fianchettoed, but Andrei going f5, very ambitious, pushing his kingside pawns.
It seems really ambitious, but it's also in the line with what you mentioned, that the knight on h4 is misplaced. So e4 could be a threat. Now after f5, perhaps even more so. Let's see what Hikaru will do to either try to bring that knight back, or what can you do? I was wondering if at any point can you poke these pawns of black, but it's so hard because f4 feels like is only helping black to push e4.
Yeah, no, I like this a lot for Andrei. I mean, this bishop on h7, it looks really bad, but it's performing an integral role. It's protecting the g6 square. It's protecting the g6 square, and it's preventing white's knight from gaining any sort of activity. As Hikaru brings his rook into the game with rook a d1, things are starting to heat up here, and I'm very curious to see what the position will look like in 5 moves.
I'm really curious too, and whether those bishops will have active diagonals, whether the knight will have come back from h4. There's so many questions here after rook a d1, which is a natural move for the rook. Of course, that's the only open file. Will we see Esipenko getting ambitious on the king's side, or will he be a bit more conservative about the plan here? F4, all right.
Well, there's your answer,
Anna.
He answered the question. You asked it. He politely answered, and more conservative or more aggressive. F5, F4. And I like it. I mean, this is the kind of chess that I love to see in the RCC. Now, it's not that he's trying to mate Hikaru on the next move, right? But he might be trying to storm the G pawn up the board as well. G5 is now very much on the table. Okay.
It is. And he is pushing the pawns without opening the long diagonal for the b2 bishop. So he's not weakening his own king. There's no queen bishop battery coming up against the g7 square because he left his pawn on e5. He's pushing f4 and potentially g5 too, as you mentioned, Danya. I like it.
I like it too. And Hikaru, he's perhaps a little bit puzzled at that move. Now, he could respond in sort of level-headed fashion with rook f to e1 in order to prevent potential e4 pawn breaks. He goes queen e2, so a very similar idea. He covers the e4 square. He opens up the d file. I like that move a lot. I like that move a lot by Hikaru. Queen e2 is a very classy move. g5 looks too risky, and I just feel like it's too weakening. Yeah, it's definitely too weakening.
It doesn't seem to be the right moment for sure for that kind of aggressive pawn push. But if it's not the right moment, how can black prepare for a potential push? He already has semi-committed to the idea that there's going to be something on the king's side.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Andre does to follow up the move F4, which was aggressive. It was interesting, but now he has to deal with all of the light square weaknesses that have been created as a result. And once again, it seems like Hikaru is close to taking the upper hand. And once he takes the upper hand here, I mean, Andre needs to play very accurately in the next 3 or 4 moves. This is a pivotal part of the game.
Hikaru makes it look so easy though, because I was worried about White's position after F4. He just sidestepped with the queen. He played queen E2, and now we are like, oh wait, what's Black's follow up?
He just makes one little move, and all of a sudden the entire landscape of the position changes. And that honestly is, you know, that's a really cool thing about chess, is that you can look at a position one way, and then a single move is played, and you notice other factors in the position. Oh, the light, look at the light squares. Oh, look at the rook on D1, which is sort of, you know, really in a threatening position and stopping the knight from moving. And all of a sudden, you can't look at the position in the same way. It's like those illusions where if you take a step back, you see a different picture, and then you take a step forward and you see like an old woman, and you take a step back, you see something else. You know, like what I'm talking about it.
Exactly. No, it's very similar to that, because I was like, oh, I take this position from Black's perspective for sure after F4. And now I'm like, I have no idea what to move as Black. The light squares are really weak.
God, the light squares are just bishop E4, and Hikaru is trying to get his knight to G6. And obviously if Andre takes on E4, he will literally have no way of stopping the fork. And it's going to be a family fork too. I mean, all 3 heavy pieces are going to be implicated.
It is, and that's just how weak the light squares are. So he cannot take on E4. He plays Rook F6 to guard the G6 square.
Great move. I think that's perhaps the only move. Now Hikaru could take and play Queen E4 check. That's very natural. No, not Queen takes E5. Queen E4 check.
I'm actually playing G6 to try to block, or you can
maybe
step out.
Yeah, G6 actually makes sense. And the position remains exceedingly complicated. You can see the eval bar is not showing an advantage for White, or at least not a big one. But I think practically speaking, this is a hard position to maintain for Andre, who's now got 3.5 minutes.
It does look very difficult. So lower on time, and also in a more difficult situation, Andrei Esipenko with the black pieces.
Yeah, Hikaru in a critical moment here, trying to figure out whether to trade bishops or to keep the tension of the move like Rook F to E1. And he does trade bishops, and he brings his knight back to F3. So he's changed gears, right? He doesn't want the F5 or G6 square anymore. Now he wants to put pressure on the E5 pawn.
And suddenly the evaluation bar is like, wait, maybe I don't like that move. But it's such a complicated position that, it didn't like knight F3, but I can't quite tell why. Does it find it too slow, the knight maneuver?
Yeah, so he's going with the knight to E4. I was wrong. I thought he was attacking the E5 pawn, but now that Andre has defended it, Hikaru's switching plans once again, now targeting the E4 square. I think he's just going for a long-term, he's not going for the immediate kill. He just wants to put the knight on E4, maybe get the king tucked away to H1, double on the D file, and put more pressure. In the long run, I kind of like that idea, practically speaking. As long as the eval bar remains below 1, I wouldn't put too much stock into the small changes in the evaluation here.
True. That's not that relevant, especially now that the knight made it to E4, rook to G6. What is going to be next from Hikaru's perspective now that the knight has made it to this lovely location in the center?
Yeah, what is next? Well, doubling on the D file is what I initially thought Hikaru would do, rook D3 and rook D1. The funny thing is Queen H5 would create this weird threat of knight G5 check because of the 2 pins, but it's very easy to defend against with King G8.
It's funny how I looked at a Queen H5 first and I was like, oh, but White is losing the queen with rook takes G3, but no, knight takes on G3 and the knight is guarding the H5 queen.
Right. So Hikaru now himself down below 4 minutes. He tries to decide, and he goes King H1. So that's a move we thought he would play at some point, and he decides to play it sooner rather than later. What concerns me more is how Andre will improve his position. Like Hikaru can chill, right? He rook d3, c4, is a million moves. How is Andre going to get this knight out of e4? How is he going to increase his kingside pressure? And right now they're both sort of, locked in this standoff, king h1, king h8. Who is going to be the first to make a more committal decision, to do something more risky?
Yeah, it's a great point that for white there are quite a few more semi-waiting moves. I mean, not even waiting moves. They are improving white's position, but they are not committing to anything. While for black, how do you start making progress? And what would that be like? Can you regroup your pieces? And what shall black play for?
It's a good question. And it's a question Andre will have to answer in the next minute as he drops down now to 2 minutes. Knight c5, trying to trade the knight on e4. That's a good move. I think that was maybe his last chance to play that move. And if he follows up with queen f5, maybe he can try to trade on his own terms.
Yeah, that knight on e4 is a very strong piece for Hikaru. It makes sense to offer a trade and also try to get a bit more hold of the light squares in general. What is it that Hikaru should do here, in your opinion, Danya? Any of the minor piece trades? Would you take on c5? Would you take on d6? Or would you ignore this move for now?
I would consider rook d5. Although then after knight takes e4, queen takes e4, all of a sudden the rook on f1 hangs. So scratch that. Man, not so easy for white to find a move either. Maybe knight takes c5 and queen e4. Yeah, maybe knight takes c5 and queen e4 is what I would settle for. Although that would involve improving the position of black's bishop, which Hikaru also doesn't really want to do.
Yeah, true. He's taking his time. Both players are approaching the 2-minute mark, 2.5 minutes. F3 feels a bit strange.
Wait a minute. Doesn't that give up a pawn? F takes e4. Oh, that's his idea. So the queen is now pinned. And apparently rook g5 followed by queen g6 sets up pretty strong threats against white's king. So the move rook g5 here looks very strong. Esipenko gets out of the pin with the queen. And I think the Eva Barana doesn't like this just because white's king becomes really vulnerable here.
Yeah.
This gets dangerous for Hikaru.
The g3 pawn is hanging now. Queen h3 is also an option. I did not expect f3, and I don't think Hikaru is actually happy with the outcome of this f3 push.
No, he's not. This has taken a bit of a turn for the worse for white. And the time situation is starting to equalize as Hikaru close to dropping below 2 minutes. Rook up to d3. Oh, f takes g3 and queen h3 is coming. Oh, Hikaru missed queen h3. Oh, he's reeling from this because now queen h2 and the rook on f1 drops. Oh, my lands. This has been a collapse in the last 3 moves by Hikaru. First f3, now rook d3. Now he's lost. G takes h2.
G1, but it's only just to try to hold on to a lost position.
Now white has, the king is wide open, and Esipenko has connected passers on the king side. He should be able to win this game. Queen h5 here. I wouldn't trade queens. That's the one thing I would not do. And I would not take, 45 seconds or a minute here, because Hikaru will be able to complicate it in Esipenko's time pressure. As Andre, he is taking his time.
Yeah, he should be very pragmatic here when it comes to the time management with 1.5 minutes on the clock. So winning position, but he still needs to convert it. Hikaru did miss. F3 was not precise, but then rook d3 was a blunder with the queen h3, just completely destroying the white king side.
But Andre is taking too long, and he finally goes queen h5 with 1.6 minutes on his clock. The point is to keep the queens on the board, and if white takes on h2, queen g4 maybe, just trying to keep the queens on the board and get this rook into the attack. Hikaru has to find some way to milk more time off of black's clock. Bishop c1. But now rook f8. Oh,
yeah.
So it's worse and worse. Rook e6 also.
This is going to be very difficult for Hikaru to defend. Obviously, the objective evaluation of the position is really poor for white, but even to find practical chances here.
Right, bishop e3, I think, is forced. Now rook f6. Rook f6 looks devastating. Rook f6, rook g6. But Andre has to move faster. He's taking 10 seconds per move here. If you drop to 10 seconds, Hikaru, like I said, he always finds a way to complicate the game. 30 seconds for Andre. Rook f6.
Andre, you gotta move.
Gotta move. Rook f6 is pretty simple. Rook f6, queen f7. He plays rook f7. I don't like that at all. I don't get that move.
Yeah, why do f7? Almost looks like he
Why not
dropped it
f6?
accidentally.
Maybe he did. I mean, he's still winning, but this is already starting to get a little more concerning.
Yeah, the time factor, 27 seconds for Andrei Esipenko, who is in a winning position, but it's not a straightforward conversion.
56 seconds for Hikaru. He's trying to contemplate, I think, whether to take on a7. And he does. And that's his only chance. He's got to grab the pawn. Andre immediately playing rook f4 and trying to swing the rook over to g4. Maybe also go queen f7. This is still looking really, really, really bad for white.
Now the rook is looking more promising, obviously, since the bishop has left the f4 square.
Hikaru down to 30 seconds. So many infiltration squares that he has to keep track of. This is looking pretty much losing rook g4. Oh, and there's no rook g1 because then bishop takes g1 and the rook defends the queen. So can queen g6? Oh, rook g1 is now a threat. And rook g3 is a threat. Everything is a threat. It's lost.
If king takes h2, the whole army of black will come back to the h file, or just win the queen immediately with rook h4.
It's, yeah, rook g3 I think is the bigger threat. There isn't even a check on f8. Hikaru trying with c5, but Andre calmly moving his bishop back. He's exhausting his defensive resources. And rook f4, I guess, or rook takes e4. Yeah, rook takes e4. Bishop h4, bang. Now you can't even take because of checkmate. Bishop f2 is game over immediately. And Hikaru resigns.
Played.
What a game by Esipenko with the black pieces. Incredible.
And it felt like Hikaru made it really difficult for Esipenko to even make progress in the middle game. I don't know where it went wrong for Hikaru, other than f3 felt really strange, and then he blundered the next move. So maybe if we just roll back real quick to that moment, f3 certainly felt a bit of a dubious decision, and a move or two later, rook d3 was a blunder.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe f3 on the move before was okay. I think Hikaru got frustrated when Andre played knight c5. And he started realizing that, okay, you're going to lose the knight in the center. Hikaru could have played a neutral move such as queen f3 or bishop c3, but instead he tries to solidify his position and underestimating the weakness of his own king. And once he realized that, an immediate blunder, allowing f takes g3 and queen h3 check. And Andre, all credit to him for keeping his composure in time pressure. That's never easy to do against Hikaru, and playing a phenomenal game to make it to the finals of the RCC.
That is indeed our first qualified player, which means that Hikaru, well, we shall see what happens with the Grand Prix points, because we were discussing earlier that Hikaru might be taking over Fabiano's first place, but he had to make it to the final for it. The tournament still goes on. Hikaru will not be in the finals this weekend. Esipenko is already qualified to the finals, but we don't know who his opponent will be. So we're going to take a very quick break. And once we are back, it is the second semifinal match, Jeffrey Zhang against Alexei Sarana, to decide who is going to be the opponent of Andrei Esipenko. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
I've never seen mate with two bishops and a knight. Don't stalemate.
Every move is stalemate. Oh my god.
This is actually really hard.
Yeah,
Not
get the knight out of the way. The knight is confusing things. Get the knight out of the way.
Just go get it to h8.
Get the knight out of the way. Just made him with the bishops.
He's gonna stalemate him. Oh,
what's
that's a stalemate? Oh. He manages to win.
Oh man.
Rasmus Arian. Oh, mate!
Whoa.
Mate, he missed mate!
He missed mate on a6.
Oh, but he's gonna win by flagging.
Okay, he's still gonna win, but that was we had mate on a6. Wait.
Move! Oh my God!
What are you doing? Move!
Oh my God!
You lost. Yep.
Oh, rook d4, rook c5, rook a5, rook b4.
That's how you play tickle right there. Except twist ending, he's gonna play the Berlin for a win. And
he's got knight f6. Hikaru's got knight f6.
He's got knight f6 castles. He took e4.
A sacrifice. He blundered. Will he blunder the bishop? He blundered the bishop.
He blundered the bishop. Oh my God! But the knight is trapped on the edge of the board.
That's an amazing idea. A novelty of the year. I've never seen this before.
Oh my God! Oh,
what is happening?
How often do you see that?
Queen e4 check. The queens are dancing. Oh my God! This is amazing. Check, check, check.
Oh my God! One of the queens shuffled their weighted piece. Oh my God!
The king has to go through b5 to a4 to b3.
What is going on? Oh, king b4, king.
Draw.
Oh my God!
And Krishuk with the wide-eyed, what just happened look.
What?
He's making serious inroads.
Dude, and he found that with no time on his clock.
Oh my God.
B3.
Why? He mouse slipped. He mouse slipped.
No, a mouse slip to e4.
But what did he want to do?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what he even wanted. Rook e3 doesn't make any sense either. Oh, my lands.
It makes no sense.
Fabi just lost his mind there, but it was already really bad.
Heartbreaker.
No idea what you're talking about. I procrastinate a verification. Never. I was going to do it right after the final game. In fact, even before I finished the broadcast, I was going to do it on air. Enter my credit card details, all that jazz.
Of course. Danya, I think you have gotten away with this because we were still muted
again.
Or at least you were muted, or both. I'm not sure. But welcome, everyone, to the broadcast. This is the Rapid Chess Championship, and we are about to witness the second semifinal that will determine which one of these grandmasters will be the opponent of Andrei Esipenko. Is it going to be Jeffrey Zhang or Alexei Serena? to qualify to the finals. What's your take on that, Danya? Who has been in a better shape? What is your feeling, prediction?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because Alexei had a pretty bad opening against Dubov. He had a pretty bad opening against Dubov, and he kind of got away with it. Now, all credit to him. He played amazing in a bad position, but I don't think he'll get away with it against Jeffrey. So we already have a much calmer opening in non-Grunfeld. I think they're violating the terms of the Sunday knockout. But I think Alexei will have to maybe spend a little bit more time in the opening. And for Jeffrey, I mean, he just seems to be in terrific form. That win, I mean, was incredible.
Yeah, the Bliss tiebreaker was so smooth for Jeffrey against Vidit.
Blew him off the board there. Yeah.
Let's see if this game will go to a tiebreaker, or will we have a result in this rapid game. Again, a reminder that it's a 10+2, so there is a 2-second increment in comparison to the Saturday format. In Sunday's one, there's always is an increment, and it's a 1-game match. So whoever wins this game qualifies to the final against Andrei Esipenko.
And a slightly odd-looking move by Alexei, knight f3 to d2. The only thing I can think of is that it perhaps prepares f4, which is not a typical idea, right? I mean, you play f4, but you do that in order to put a knight on e5. So who knows? Let's see how Alexei follows this up. Yeah, he does play f4. There we go.
F4 indeed very quickly played by Serena, and we shall see how Jeffrey will react to this setup. For white, it's a very straightforward approach. After f4 to bring then the knight to f3 and head toward e5.
Yeah, this is actually quite a serious threat. And you have to defend against it, but how do you do it? I mean, knight b6, maybe knight b6, but where is the knight going from b6, right? You get the knight. It seems a little bit passive there. And white could still bring the knight around back to f3 and then to e5.
The other option would be to, I was going to say the other option was going to be to push g6, but that just looked horrible with the pin and the dark square. So that goes to knight b6 to free some space up for the d6 bishop.
Okay, now another decision to be made for Alexei as he puts his queen on f3 rather than his knight. A lot of just very unusual decisions being made, and I think Alexei is just going for checkmate. He just wants queen g3, queen h4, and bang, bang, bang. And Jeffrey striking in the center with c5. Things already heating up. Short castle. I cannot predict a single one of these moves that are played by either player here.
It's a really exciting position where there's so many different ideas and plans, and when do you do which move matters. The move order here, for instance, for h6, so to chase that bishop back, but what's the follow-up? Because the pin is still annoying, this bishop pinning the f6 knight, and as soon as you move the queen away, white will take on f6 to damage that pawn structure in front of the king.
Right. And rook a to e1 by Alexei, bringing his rook into the game. I like the way that he's playing very quickly. And I think that's his pre-tournament strategy. I mean, he's just playing a lot faster than anybody else in the tournament. He's 927. He's clearly out of his prep, but he's just very confident in his ideas. And I like it. It's audacious.
He did it against Dubov too, that even though he was worse out of the opening with the white pieces, he just kept playing
I don't
fast.
care. I'm just making moves. I'm gonna get you in time pressure, and you might be winning, but you're not gonna have enough time to punish me.
Yeah, his approach seems very confident and very pragmatic, even in worse positions, to keep that fast pace. And now he's not even worse. If anyone is worse, I'm guessing it's more difficult for black to keep making the most precise moves because of the pin. Then you're flipping the board.
I don't know what. I'm not even pressing anything. No, I wasn't pressing the board flip button. It was just doing. No, I don't know. I think it was Bick. I think he's trolling me. I swear I was not. No, but I wasn't pressing it. I was not pressing the button. That's so weird. I honestly was not pressing the flip
we all
button.
Do it. I was even like, do grandmasters also flip the board to think of black's position better? Can you see the board better?
That is honestly hilarious.
We may have a few.
Okay, well, I will not touch
Witches.
I will not make any move. In any case, Queen G3, I was going to talk about this move, Anna. The idea, and this is scary for Jeffrey, is knight f3, knight e5. And if he gets his knight into e5, maybe we need to flip the board to talk more about how dangerous this could become for black. Yeah, well, speaking of board flips, I remember when Gudmundur Sigurjonsson was flipping the board at the Reykjavik International Tournament in 1968.
Imagine over the board flipping the board.
That would, yeah, what would that even look like? I mean,
Actually, have you seen the short Gary's Game, a Pixar short animated film?
no,
I'll need to send
Gary's
you a
game. Gary as in Gary Kasparov.
I think it's spelled Geri or something along those lines, but it's a really cute short by Pixar. So the actual proper like film studio Pixar. It's a short about a chess game in a park, and the protagonist Gary is playing a game against himself. So he keeps flipping the board.
Wow. So right, to make the move.
I don't want to spoil the end of the story. It's a really good one. I recommend it. I think it's on YouTube.
I'll watch it after the coverage. That sounds interesting. It'll join my
Speaking
lineup.
of this flipping the board, it was totally not Danya. We may have a technical glitch here. He doesn't need to flip the board to see it better from Black's perspective. That's a grandmaster skill that you don't need to flip the board. I would flip the board.
Well, Jeffrey, you could see he was just sort of, I feel like he's just surprised at the way that Alexi's position works. It's like Alexi is driving a car and you can't see where the engine is and there's no wheels, but the car is moving. And it's like everything looks so weird. The queen on G3, the bishop on H4, and yet, White's got this possibility of getting the knight around to E5 as Jeffrey takes on a D4 and moves his knight back from B6 to D7. I think he's trying to get his queen to B6 and try to hit Alexi's left side, because Alexi, he's focused almost all of his pieces on the king side and he continues to play quickly. Knight F3 was not correct. And did he blunder knight H5? I feel like he might have blundered knight H5.
With both queens hanging, and so
No. Sorry. Queen B6. No, that's the move. No, it was what I mentioned initially, queen B6. And now he's threatening knight H5.
Yeah,
and he's also threatening the pawn, and Alexi's play, Anna, has backfired. He played way too quickly without asking what Jeffrey wanted by playing knight B to D7.
Yeah, we were praising his time management and how confident he is also when he was in the worst position against Dubov and he kept playing fast, but sometimes it does backfire if you don't spend a bit more time in critical positions.
Well, I guess it's just that you fall into the trap of thinking that, it's worked once and, you're sort of invincible, and you fall into that complex, and Jeffrey goes knight B to D7. It looks, okay, he's just defending the knight on F6. No problem. We can keep going with our plan. Boom, queen B6. All of a sudden, there's this double threat, and White has no way to defend against it. The awkwardness of White's construction is finally backfiring, is hurting him here.
It is, and now Alexei does not have a way to hold on to all those pawns that are on the dark squares, constantly targeted at the moment, the B2 pawn, but also knight H5 to pick up the more important F4 pawn.
Yeah, he's just, I don't want to say he's busted, but this is pretty close to being just completely lost. If he loses the F pawn, that is his main attacking pawn, right? Without that pawn, none of the ideas that he has are in any way effective. Knight E5 no longer has the necessary support. He can't push the pawn to F5. This is borderline lost. Now he's thinking, but it's a little too late. It's a lot too late.
Yeah, and there seems to be no way out, so he should try to find the least damaging line.
This is very, very nasty. Very nasty. Okay, bishop B1. How does Jeffrey actually finish this game off? What does he do to improve his position? Bishop G4. There's our answer. Knight E3, though.
Yeah, knight E3 does attack that bishop that has just been placed to G4.
Kind of walked into that, no?
He did. And maybe it was, again, a fast move this time by Jeffrey. Right. He does trade on F3. And that's
another one. So king h1 would set up the idea of knight f5, right? That would be a pretty reasonable way to continue, I think.
I guess it's going to be played by Serena because he desperately needs some kind of a counter attack with 2 pawns down.
Right, bishop f2 would have the same idea, but that would walk into knight e5, whereas king h1, knight e5, white can take the knight on f4.
Important difference.
Right. But Alexei, he takes his time. He's learned his lesson. He's slowed down. Bishop f5 is also interesting. Oh, what a spicy position.
Yeah, and the question will be what you said. That isn't it too late for Alexei? Obviously, the position still has a lot of pieces on the board, so it's still complex enough. But can he still find a way back into this game and give a few reasons to worry about for Jeffrey? And at the moment, it's 2 extra pawns for black.
Right. Yeah, this is a big decision as Alexei tries to figure out in which option he's got the most practical defensive chances. But Jeffrey, all of a sudden, is up on the clock, and he's got over half of his time left. So you can't go for something that relies on, a trap. He's got to find an objectively decent defensive resource. And he goes king h1. So that is the move that I thought he would make. And Jeffrey has to deal with the immediate threat of knight f5.
He does have to deal with that. This is the line that you suggested, and he ended up playing it after quite some thinking. But it does seem to be at least the most promising one for white when it comes to creating counter chances. What can black do about this idea of knight f5?
Right, that's the question. That's the key question. Knight e5, once again, it intercepts the bishop, which means that the knight on f4 will be undefended. He does go knight e5. Now, I was thinking about that. He goes knight e5 anyway. The thing is, after the trade on f4, black is going to have a discovered attack against the rook, but I didn't see exactly where he could put his knight. I didn't see exactly how he'd explain that. Alexei doesn't take the knight at all. So I guess Jeffrey, maybe. Okay, so.
Was it just the trades in knight d3 or?
Yeah, this is one move. There's also
no, the bar doesn't like it much.
Oh, it's knight g6. It's knight g6.
Yeah,
and the point is, now you take and whoop, rook takes c3, and there's a back rank mate on c1.
Oh, okay. That's a lot simpler and very straightforward.
Queen g3 by Alexei, and he's threatening queen takes g7 and knight f5, among other things. So not so simple for Jeffrey here as he drops to 4 minutes on the clock. We're in for a good one.
Yeah, knight f5 is a huge threat still. Does it change anything if Jeffrey drops the knight back to g6? And I'm thinking which knight, but I would like to take the e5 knight away to block the g5. It might not make that much sense. I'm just trying to see if there's any discovered ideas, but the d6 bishop is not protected, so it's not the same. It would be better, of course, if the king was on g1 and you would have knight e2 ideas.
Right. That is true. Yeah, king h1 was a very valuable prophylactic move by Alexei. And Jeffrey continues to ponder his next move. This is critical. You can see the concentration, maybe also the consternation as Jeffrey trying to figure out, well, how do I actually use this x-ray against the queen to my advantage? Wow, what a complicated position.
Very complicated. Jeffrey approaching now the 3-minute mark. He is a minute and a half below on the clock. So knight
what is
g6,
happening?
7, knight f5, and the queen is
e1.
hanging, but so is the rook on f1 with checkmate.
Right, so you have to take e1. And now the key question is, what is Jeffrey's move here? Is it knight e2? Oh my, is there knight e2? Knight e2.
Because
I think there might be knight e2.
Wow. So
I vote knight e2.
And then the line goes.
No, I was wrong. Oh no, there's queen e6. Oh, I forgot that the knight defends the bishop. Sorry.
I thought there was some big moment after queen d6 that I could not find it.
I was focusing on knight d4, bishop g3, but I forgot the knight defends the bishop, so I apologize for that. And he just drops back to b6. He takes the simplest route. Why not? Jeez, Queen G4. Alexei still has a lot of attacking chances here. Don't fall asleep on this idea, for example.
Yeah, it's crazy how complex this position has become and how White does actually have definitely more than a slight chance to punch back here. White is down 2 pawns, but with so many pieces on the king side and not much time on the clock, anything can still happen in this game.
Absolutely. 2 minutes for Jeffrey, and all of a sudden Alexei is back on top on the clock. He's got lots of activity on the king side. He is down 2 pawns, so the moment Jeffrey consolidates, he should be able to win the game. But how does he defend first and foremost against the threat of knight takes h6 check? I mean, moving the rook to f8 would, I think, make sense. But you could also move it to b8. You can't move it to d8 because there's a bishop there. You also can't take the bishop because you get mated on g7. 1 minute and 30 seconds as he's dropping now dangerously low on the clock. And you know what Alexei is capable of in his opponent's time pressure. He's shown that against Dubov.
Yeah, and he got into this situation having 2 pawns down because he played really fast, also in some of the more critical moments, but it ends up giving him that time advantage that can put pressure on his opponents even when he's worse. And this is how he did qualify already to this stage against Daniil Dubov. He's doing it again with the time pressure, definitely. Rook c4 by Jeffrey.
Wow, what a fearless move, allowing a check on e8, but he figures that the king has a nice escape square on h7. And the moment White's rook leaves the first rank, Black will have his own set of threats down the first rank.
And also with rook c4, there's potential discovered attacks. The rook is guarded by the pawn, so he can jump away with that knight from f4 to squares like d3 to attack the queen and the rook at the same time.
Right. Knight e3 is interesting, I guess, but no, that doesn't seem to carry the kind of luster that you would want from a move. I guess bishop g3, but then there's knight d3, rook e8, a complete chaos on the board. I have no idea what's going on.
It's weird how there are so many patterns, but also nothing is like that straightforward. So check moves away, knight takes d6. So
okay, so bishop g3, I guess. Yeah, pinning the knight. The knight d3. Oh my gosh, no, then bishop takes d3. God, it's so easy to blunder here. Oh my goodness, it's so easy to blunder. Queen f6, but Jeffrey keeping his composure. He's just playing very calmly. He's not doing anything crazy.
Yeah, it has been the case that he manages to keep his calm and his cool also when he's going really low on time. After b3, he immediately pushes h5.
h5, counterattacking White's queen. Wow. Now where does the queen go? Queen f3 might meet with rook c3, attacking the queen with tempo. Very complicated position. Very complicated. Queen d1, maybe just come back to d1, back to home base. I don't see too many other squares. Queen d7 is another candidate move, and now Alexei dropping to 2 minutes. Jeez.
He's still considering where to go.
I'm not even going to attempt to suggest a move here. I mean, queen d1 and queen d7 seem to be the 2 candidate moves that I have my eye on. And he gives a check on e8 instead, and that was not right. Wait, queen d4, there's queen takes d4. What? Even the eval bar is confused. Queen f3, 56 seconds for Jeffrey. Everything is pinned, but White's back rank is exposed. Oh my God. And 3 results. Oh, wait a minute.
h4, but the evaluation bar is jumping up for White's advantage.
Bishop f2, rook d2. I don't know what Black's going to do after bishop f2, because if rook d2, there might be bishop e3 with some sort of a fork. Oh, my lands, what a position.
Is that the reason why the bar jumped, do you think? Bishop f2.
Rook d2, bishop e1, rook b2. He goes bishop e1 immediately. That was not the move. It was definitely bishop f2. But now he's threatening bishop c3. And the EVA bar jumping behind, back and up and down. Oh, rook d1 check if bishop c3. Oh, Lexi missed that detail.
Oh. Now with the queen on g5 threatening the g2 square, the queen on f3 is overloaded, has too many tasks to deal with. So it's no longer possible
Bishop
to
c2.
chase the rook away.
You've got to go bishop c2, and he plays it. He defends the d1 square with the bishop so that the queen can focus on defending g2. This is still a 3-result game. Knight back to e6, blundering f7, blundering f7. Oh, Jeffrey blundered the f7 pawn, or did he? I think he did. And he takes it. And Jeffrey missed it, and he's going to lose. Unbelievable.
Oh, my.
And look at Jeffrey's rook f4, maybe one last chance. Oh, queen g8 and queen h8 is mate. What a mating construction.
Of queen sacrifice, of the knight takes, rook takes, the king has nowhere to go.
Oh my goodness. I think this is going to happen. I don't see an alternative. He's got to try it. He's got to try it and hope Alexei misses. Unreal. And otherwise he loses both of his knights. He just forgot about that pawn. And Alexei's strategy will pay off once again, improbably. No, but now just takes and takes the knight. Excuse me.
Yeah, rook e4
yeah.
to block the bishop, but as you said, I can just pick up all the material.
Queen g8 first I would throw in just to make sure the knight is pinned after you take it on e6.
And he's
Queen
taking
g8
his
check is the
time
simplest.
to calculate
Yeah.
it thoroughly.
Now he's taking his time. Queen g8 check. I don't know what he's thinking about. Or he's just relaxing, enjoying the moment, you know, squeezing the most out of it, takes e6. And I think Jeffrey is going to resign. And this is over. And it's mate in 6. Rook h8 and bishop d2. Rook h8 and bishop d2 ends the game. Oh, don't miss mate on f1. Queen h3 and rook h8. Jeffrey trying to run around with his king. Queen e6. Queen e6 is made in 1. Queen e6 is made in 1. He missed made in 1.
Well, he's in.
No, but Jeffrey resigned anyway. It doesn't matter. He missed made in 1.
Oh, what a
Jeffrey
game.
resigned.
This has been such a roller coaster. Jeffrey with 2 extra pawns, but Sarana with the time pressure that he put on his opponent already in the previous match against Dubov, and now he put that same time pressure on Jeffrey. It worked out. He is in the finals. He's going to be playing against Andrei Esipenko in just a moment. What a game this has been, Danya.
Yeah, and what a bloody day. I mean, we've had decisive results in all of the matches except one, and that game was decided in the 3-minute portion. Alexei Sarana, I mean, it was a roller coaster ride for him in both of the games that he's won. But man, oh man, I mean, he just finds a way to keep his composure. He produces practical chances, and he is second to none in that regard.
He is certainly a deserved player in the finals. He is now qualified and will be playing against Andrei Esipenko in just a moment. A quick shout out, as usual, to our sponsor, by the way. This championship would not be possible without our presenting sponsor, Coinbase. And we are obviously very happy to let you know about the features that Coinbase has, including the one that Danya always points out. You can learn and get paid to learn. So make sure to sign up at coinbase.com/chess and get $10 in Bitcoin as soon as you sign up and verify your account. We will be taking a very quick break. And once we are back, it is the finals indeed. No Hikaru, no Fabi in the finals, but we have 2 very strong grandmasters who will be competing for the highest of prices in cash and also in bragging rights. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Blue check marks. Everybody loves blue check marks. Chess.com is excited to launch its own blue check mark today with our verified members program. And for the first time, for any online platform anywhere, there will be a transparent and clear process to how you become verified and get that blue check mark. Any Chess.com member can become verified by having their account linked to a real identity with a unique payment form and SMS held privately in their profile. Most importantly, applicants must pass a comprehensive fair play screening in order to get verified. All right, but besides the blue check mark, why should you become verified? First and foremost, all verified players are eligible to play in the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, including regular cash prizes for non-titled members, this massive and historic event has but one cost of entry, your $15 verification fee in order to become verified. Additionally, other verified benefits will include access to regular verified-only events, listing on verified-only leaderboards, priority pairings against other verified-only members, and more. To learn more about how to become verified, if you're watching this during one of our live shows, use the command verified in chat. Or if you're watching it anywhere else, go to chess.com/verified today and go get that beautiful butterfly. Blue check mark. What is going on here? Hey, Elon. Yeah, no, you saw the news. I know you like buying companies with blue check marks, but we're not for sale. Dude, do you even know how to move the pieces? All right. We're going to get back to this later. I got to record a video. Thanks, buddy. Elon.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase, and welcome back to our Spenny segments. The voice of the chat. Spenny, what has the chat been up to all this time?
Well, certainly very excitable. That last game had a lot of very messy, very complicated positions. One thing the chat would like to report from a few segments ago. Let's see if I can distill it into one notion. Mute, muted, F, mute. He's on mute. So that's their feedback.
Thank you for the feedback, everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but you can't take anything the mosquitoes say too seriously. But we figured it all out. The other feedback was Tango Charlie pointed out that when Danya's calculating, he looks miserable. Any thoughts on that?
That's good to know. I think it's the exertion from these incredibly deep calculations that I do all game long. It takes a toll on my facial expressions.
Mm-hmm. And then
having Bick as your producer will make anybody miserable. So.
Sure, yeah. Makes us all nervous on edge. Another thing the chat pointed out, I'm sure this was completely unintentional, but for one of the calculating moments, this was a few games ago, you kind of looked back and kind of searched for the answer. Hikaru looks for the lines on his ceiling, but Danya, maybe you were looking inside your own head?
Yeah, I tend to do different things. Like I often put my head inside my shirt when I'm calculating. That's my go-to. I also look up, I look up, I look to the side. Sometimes I close my eyes and I don't do any of it intentionally. Like everything is done in service of trying to visualize the board. So it's interesting how my expressions, I don't no longer account for them. Like I have no idea what I'm doing, Classic chess player moment.
Involuntary. Whereas a player at my level, and maybe some people in the chat, they might be doing the looking away thing where it's the opposite. They're not actually doing any deeper calculations. Once you can't see the board, it's gone from my vision. I'm just looking like that to seem intelligent while I think about my takeout order later.
Well, I'm thinking about that too. The game is underway, the finals of the RCC Spenny. We really appreciate all of your insight and your company.
All right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us, Spen, and we hope to have you back soon. Well, we do have a game to comment on. These matches are coming one after the other. I wish we had more time to chat about those topics, like the looking up the ceiling, trying to be the next Beth Harmon. These two players, they are not looking up the ceiling that often. They are looking at their computer screens, and the opening that we see on the board. Danya, your thoughts? Is not a Grunfeld?
It is not a Grunfeld. I can't believe my eyes. And what I can believe my eyes on is the fact that Alexei has over 10 minutes still, right? I can believe that readily. 10:08. He's just actually gaining time.
A minute of time advantage. And this is still a theoretical line that they both know and play.
Right. And I mean, look at the 10:09. He continues to add time to his clock.
Yeah, it's been very consistent how he keeps being fast, even when it's not the best way of playing, even when he perhaps could have spent a bit longer, and he did get into trouble because of being so fast, but it paid out so far, this time advantage.
And this is a classic Nimzo Indian. He's gotten his knight to e5. I think Alexei likes to get a piece to e5. Like he seems to like these kinds of structures. He's gone rook b1, hitting the bishop on b7 and trying to induce rook b8. And I guess he wants to play queen a4 maybe as a follow-up and try to like just pressure all of black's queen side pawns and key squares. Who knows? I mean, we're about to find out. We won't have to wait very long because he's going to play it all instantly.
I know. We only need to wait for Andrei's decision, but Alexei will be there ready with a pre-move nearly. Okay, not queen a4 now. Hopefully he did not pre-move it.
Yeah, knight b6. And finally, he's under 10 minutes.
Oh my, headline news.
10 minutes.
Serena has spent already 10 seconds from the clock. How dare he starts thinking.
How he's playing so slowly. I don't have the patience for this. There we go. There we go. Now that's more like the pace I like to see. Knight b5 going around to d4. I mean, he's got himself a pretty nice position here. The knight is swinging back to d4. He's got black in an IQP structure. And, you know, as with all IQP positions, the key question is who controls the square in front of it. But Andrei with a really nice queen e7 move, hitting the knight and aiming at the a3 pawn.
That's a double attack that white can't really deal when it comes to defending both. Like you have to defend or move the knight away. And the a3 pawn will be hanging once that knight from b5 is pushed away. But if we push a6, that will weaken the b6 knight. So I guess this whole line is not working out. Like black cannot just go pawn.
That's a great point. That is a great point. He goes knight c4, activating his knight. The other knight can jump into e4 as well. And this is, yeah, knight e4. Knight e4 looks interesting because then a6 is actually going to be a threat because it deprives the knight of the c3 square. But Alexei's knight could also jump into f5. So what a complicated, chaotic position is brewing already. I think Alexei is consciously going for these types of positions and trying to build up a big advantage on the clock.
He is doing that consistently in every single match of his. So let's see if he keeps going with that pace, with the very speedy moves, and what will be his plan like in this IQP position, guys, at the queen's pawn.
Right. I mean, first of all, the question, well, there's bishop takes e4, which is a possibility in all of these positions. So that's one thing that white could consider. There are moves like queen c2, which aim to create a defended square on c3 so that a6 isn't as dangerous. Queen h5 by Alexei, a more aggressive approach to the position, potentially setting up some sort of kingside attack with knight f5. God, wow. The way he's playing is just so interesting. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, with all that pressure. So the knight can't really go away from e4 unless it's back to f6. The queen and the bishop on d3 are both targeting h7, and the only thing stopping white from the checkmate is this e4 knight. It's an important piece.
White can actually go knight c3 as an idea to distract the knight because he can't take due to the mate, as you're pointing out. And again, he's 2 minutes up on the clock, and I think we're sensing a theme in Alexei Serrano's RCC performance here. This strategy of, okay, maybe he's not making the best moves on every move, right? Maybe he's even lost both of his games, but he's winning them because his opponents are not able to deal with the complexity of the position, as Andrei going g6 and blunting the bishop on d3.
Now, after this, finally, the knight can move away if it wants to. Not that it's not being very cozy and strong on e4. It's just good that he no longer has to worry about that h7 square when it comes to checkmate patterns.
Right. And queen jumps into h6, occupying the weak square, produced by black's last move. Things starting to heat up a little bit. What happens if white goes a6, though, right now? Where does the knight go? I guess white plays bishop takes e4 and then knight c3. Is that the idea?
Could be, because otherwise there is no square, literally no square for the knight.
Is that what you want me to do? I mean, the game wasn't smooth enough. I mean, what do you want me to do? I mean, what do you want from me? Do you want me to win a piece in the opening and take it all the way to the end? Is that how you play a smooth game? I don't know where that came from. Anyways.
I think that was a very smooth impersonation, very smooth accent.
Whoa, that's
too.
a fork. I didn't see that move. Knight d2. That comes out of, where did that come from?
Yeah, wait
By
a
the
second.
way,
Why did we not look at this? Because obviously before g6 it was not possible. That was queen h7 checkmate, but now it is very much a knight fork.
did Alexei see this? I don't know. I mean, I don't if he cares. It seems like nothing's stopping him from playing quickly, not even losing material.
But how is it that even though knight d2 attacks both rooks, the evaluation bar is barely moving?
Yeah, it is barely moving, because I guess if white sacks the exchange, first of all, I was considering knight f5 in some positions, but no, it doesn't work, because after gf, bishop takes f5, black can always play f6. So apparently the move is bishop takes c4. And now if you take f1, then I take back, right? That's out of the question. But if you take b1, I drop the bishop back to d3 and actually trap your knight. So bishop takes c4 would actually force the knight to recapture. And now, to be fair, losing the light squared bishop, not losing, but getting it traded, is not desirable for white, because white is left with a really bad dark squared bishop. But at least white doesn't lose an exchange. That's the only move, though. He's got to find it.
I see.
He's got to find it. Otherwise, he's lost. He's lost.
Yeah, and in that line that you showed, can you show again how those trades are? Because I was just like trying to understand if there's an intermediate move. If was it bishop takes c4, knight b1?
Right. He's played it, by the way.
Oh, he has. And
he's played knight b1.
So do you have time for a6 as black to try to get that knight back into
Well,
the game?
that's exactly what Andre is banking on, the move a6. And not only does it get the knight back in the game, it actually traps white's knight using the knight on b1 to cover c3. But oh my god, look at this line. So bishop d3 a6, white has bishop b2, and if you play a takes b5, there's a mate in 3, queen
Oh
e7. Woo-hoo-hoo. Look at this mate.
Goodness me.
And now obviously Andre is not going to take on b5. He's going to play f6. But now there's another sack available on g6. So this is happening. Bishop d3 has been played. Now Andre is going to play a6. That's the only move, I think.
And after bishop b2, he has to deal with the diagonal before it's too late.
Alexei's going to see this, and he's probably going to play within 5 seconds. Watch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. Oh, man, he's making me look bad.
Another 5 seconds. Give
right.
him a bit more time.
5 times 5. I meant 5 times 5, right.
Bishop b2. So why is it that black has to do after bishop b2?
f6, he's got to play f6. But then bishop takes g6 comes in. That's another sacrifice with more tactics. But let's wait until that happens. Let's see if he plays bishop b2 first of all. Pause, champ. Yeah, he's the one time Alexei thinks is the one time I predicted he would play fast. No, but he's got to play bishop b2. That once you see the idea of queen g7, I feel like this move becomes very natural.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what he's calculating. It just feels like whenever he has something super concrete, he does take the time to calculate it through. Yeah. Otherwise, he goes with his intuition.
Well, and that is itself a sign of great intuition. Like, I think people don't talk about this enough. The idea of like when to use your intuition is itself intuitive, right? You got to figure out when to think. And a lot of players struggle with this. Like, they play instantly in situations where they have, you know, something relatively simple that they could have found with a minute of thinking. And then they play, they spend 10 minutes on a move that they should play within 30 seconds. So Alexei has done a great job of dividing his time. And there it is, bishop b2. f6 is forced, I think. And things are heating up big time here in the final of the RCC Sunday knockout.
Bishop b2 setting up this beautiful checkmate idea with the queen sacrifice, queen
Woo!
g7. That's
Love
so
that
beautiful.
pattern. Love that pattern. What to
Now, now for Andre, it really doesn't seem like that he has anything better than f6. You need to block the diagonal.
Yeah. And then f6, if we can bring up the analysis board here. And he's played it. So let's not, because he's already taken out g6. He's already found it. I was going to show this on the analysis board, but he's already played it. Oh my goodness. Alexei Serrano is on fire this tournament.
That's the
And
only reason why he was thinking of bishop b2. He already calculated
look how casual. But look how casual he looks. Just has
like
his hand on his,
game.
whatever. Yeah, and Andre's, I'm calculating. Alexei's just sitting there and chilling.
Yeah, we have been just discussing this with Svenny and the viewers about the thinking postures. Do you look up? Do you try to read the pieces from the ceiling like Beth Harmon and Hikaru? Or Danya hiding in your hoodie to calculate it better? Andre is in deep thought and also trouble, it looks like, from the body language, while Alex is so chill.
Yeah, and this is crazy. This is just crazy. Now let's unpack this for a second before he's made a move. So the first question I think people have is, well, what happens after h takes g6? Well, here after queen takes g7 check, queen takes g6 check, queen g7, white trades, okay? And white transforms the advantage from a tactical one into a positional one. Think about the round one game between Hikaru and Jospin, right? You get a very similar situation where white is down in exchange, yes, but white's got the two pawns on the queen side, and look at the control that white has over the dark square. So I think there's about a 50% chance that we're going to see this position on the board. Let's watch. Black has alternatives, though. Black can also try the move knight d2 here, but that allows knight f5. Ooh, God, does that look scary?
Looks very scary. And for Esipenko, he only has 2 minutes and 45 seconds to decide how to deal with this sacrifice.
He's got to take g6. He's got to take g6. And then after queen takes g6 check, he can also drop his king away to h8. That is the alternative I think that he's perhaps thinking about. He might be actually thinking about that position and just, sometimes like you don't play the obvious move because you're too like deep into the thought. But you should move first and think later. Okay, now a big moment. Will he play king h8 or will he play queen g7? And 2 minutes on the clock. He's also experiencing now big problems with his clock.
Such a difficult situation to be under time pressure is not helping.
Wowza. And he continues to think. Queen g7. So we are going to see that endgame. Oh, or not. Queen takes b1. But now there's bishop c8. Bishop c8, which Alexei has missed because that threatens bishop h3. What a turnaround. If Alexei finds bishop c8 here, he's going to be much better because the threat of bishop h3 winning the second exchange. Oh my gosh. And here Alexei has played too quickly.
So bishop c8 is the best move here for black, because if black were to take on b5, there's knight e6, and he still steps into it.
Yeah, he doesn't find it. And now we're going to get another one of those exchange up positions. No, but now we get the similar position to what we were discussing, right, with this endgame, where white is just much better. And I think now Alexei's going to win.
Well, a
H4.
turn of events.
As he runs his pawns up the board. Incredible. Just amazing action here in the final.
Yeah,
But
it seems like even though Alexei's variation wasn't the most precise, but Esipenko missed that opportunity. It wasn't an easy one, to be fair, the bishops to c8.
And now the rook is coming up to d4 and then to f4. And with 1 minute on the clock, I just don't see Andre surviving this. Again, I don't think objectively the position is indefensible, but look at how many weaknesses he has and how many things he has to keep track of. Alexei's strategy has been brilliant this tournament.
He has been just so consistently
Incredible.
speedy.
Incredible.
Even if he got into worse positions out of the opening because of his speed, it paid off. It ended up working out for him. He turned the tables
Wow.
in worse positions.
Wow, just wow in 47 seconds by Andre. He goes rook g8. He tries to stop the g pawn, but here comes the rook swinging over to f4, attacking f6. The weaknesses are collapsing. I think Alexei should be able to win this. Rook f4. Apparently not the best, but that looks very natural. Down to 38 seconds now is Andre. 5 minutes. He's got over half his clock. What a madman. What about d4? What about d4
Oh,
to
D4
try to open up?
the diagonal. Yeah, makes sense. And that's what Esipenko is thinking too. He opens
Alexei
up
definitely
diagonal.
missed that. He definitely missed that. He could have prevented that in so many ways. He could have played f3 first.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the price of the speed. That sometimes he
Right.
does miss the more precise move.
Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. And now it gives black a little bit of hope. Now, after e4, I think white is still in great shape. You could also play g4. And if the pawn moves away from d4, there's bishop takes f6 with check. So it still looks good for white, but now things are getting a little bit more complicated.
And Alexei is thinking. Big news.
Thinking, yeah, that is breaking news for one of the first times that he's done that this tournament.
It's still
Incredible.
so impressive. The time pressure he puts on every single one of his opponents. At least that's what
Yeah.
has been the main storyline today for him in all his matches. And even if he doesn't play the most precise line, he's confident and fast.
And he does play g4. That is the best move according to the engine. He preserves the 2 pawns for the exchange. He preserves the attack on f6, and he preserves his passed h pawn, which could decide the game ultimately. As 10 seconds for Andre, king d6, knight back to d3. Look how quickly he continues to play. f6, how do you defend it, Anna? I feel like Andre's position is collapsing here. 5 seconds. Rook a4. Good defensive resource, but shut down by the knight. G5.
F5 now, but after G5, the pawn will still be hanging.
Although bishop e4. And
Oh.
white's going to have connected passers, though. I don't know how Andre's going to stop that. Oh, check on d4 first, forcing the king to decide. 2 seconds for Andre. He's got to make a move. And now g5. And here come the pawns. And here comes the king.
Yeah, and the rook is now active on the d5. That's why he gave the check first before pushing the pawn. Very smart.
He's a madman. King f4 is winning. Okay, this is collapsing now. King f4 and h5.
And Andrew knows that he's shaking his head.
Yeah, no, this is you never say over, but this is basically over after knight d5 check. Just forcing the bishop away and then winning f5. It's resignable. And Andrei Esipenko is going to continue playing. He's not going to resign just yet. And no, he's still not going to resign. Bishop
Also some
d4.
time. 0.8 seconds.
Bishop b5 check and h5. The pawns are just totally unstoppable here in a variety of ways. What an incredible performance by Alexei Sarana in this tournament. They're not without mistakes, not without luck, but good players always lucky. You know what they say.
True. And he earned his
H7.
luck with the speed and the time pressure he puts on every opponent of his.
Yep, exactly. And h7 ends the game, ends the match, ends the tournament. Yep. Well, don't promote, but he goes king f5 first. And it is not official yet. Just a couple more moves. Okay,
And it keeps trying, but not after the promotion.
Nah, this is over. And now it's official. And Alexei Sarana, for the first time, has won the Sunday knockout with a scintillating series of victories over Jeffrey Zhang and now against Andrei Esipenko. He's incredible.
And we saw a smile on Alexei's face and then on Andrei's face too. I think the two players can now see each other and are possibly talking to each other on the call. So that was very wholesome to see too, that of course they were opponents over the board for this very important final, but they're also possibly good friends and they get along very well. It was Alexei Sarana who has proven to be the strongest player this weekend. We're gonna take a very quick break to set up an interview with the winner of this week's Rapid Chess Championship. So don't go anywhere. We'll be joined by the champion of this Sunday's Rapid Chess Championship in a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to the broadcast of the Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. We are being joined by the winner of today's event, Alexei Serena. Alexei, congratulations. How does it feel to win for the first time the finals here of the Rapid Chess Championship?
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a really hard tournament, and first time I qualify further than first round, and I was lucky in first game. Because of internet of my opponent, I had such a terrible position, and something was with internet, maybe because of situation, that chess.com was blocked and some problems, and I don't know. And that is why I was lucky. I should lost, of course, this game. But also after the game with Jeffrey Shong, I also had lost position. So I was incredible lucky today. But last game, I really like it. I think last game I played pretty well.
It was really impressive. And Danya, you said during the broadcast that good players get lucky. So you earned your luck. You kept putting time pressure on your opponent. We were impressed. How do you play so fast?
Oh, it is my usual style. And usually in opening, I have an advantage. And I know it is my style. I also in classical chess over the board, I playing really fast.
Mm-hmm. What was your proudest moment of your last game? Was it the Queen G7 check, Knight F5, Knight H6 idea? What were you most proud of against Andre?
Yeah, I think just initiative game. So I found Bishop B2 instead of just, for example, Bishop B1, and then Bishop G6, Queen B1, and then practically almost losing position.
Yeah, that endgame was impossible to play. So
we have we have been joking before we came back on air that our producer forgot to change the name card. You were called Hikaru right before we went live on air. How does it feel to be here instead of Hikaru? Because Hikaru and Fabiano Caruana have been the two players at the top of the Grand Prix leaderboard, but it's you now who is here in the finals and who have won it all. Will you be back for the next weekends to keep showing Fabi and Hikaru that they should be careful about your participation and be aware of you?
I don't know. Okay. Usually when all players play in this tournament, like Levon Aranyan, Wesley So, Fabiano Caruana, and now they all playing in American tournaments that make much more easy to qualify to top 8. For me, even qualify to top 8 already success, and then so I don't know.
Would you agree, Daniel? You mentioned that to some players that they clearly say that it's more difficult to make it and qualify on Saturday than to play the matches on Sunday. Do you agree with that, Alexei?
Oh, it depends on pairings. I don't know. Okay, today I was just lucky because of internet and of something. And okay, yesterday, yeah, but before I thought I qualified around 4 times and never went out of the first round. I always lost. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't agree.
Well, we were equally impressed with your performances yesterday and today. Alexei, we'll let you go. We know you're also wanted on the Russian broadcast, so have a good time there. And thanks again for joining us. That was an incredible performance.
Yeah, congratulations again, Alexei. And that was a very impressive finish against Andre Esipenko. I think, Danya, you and me will have to think which game do we pick for the critical moment of today's event, but that final game is a very good candidate. Very good candidate.
There were so many critical moments, and a lot of them were resolved successfully and went in Alexei Serrano's favor. And how else do you win an RCC other than to perform exceptionally in critical moments? So we will make that decision, Anna, and we need a break for that. We need to decide. We'll put some thought into it, but another scintillating Sunday knockout is in the books. But don't go anywhere, right? Because we still have some conclusions to make.
Indeed, we'll be back in just a moment with the critical moments chosen by Danya and myself.
In a world where only one can be the world champion, now anyone can become a Chess.com world champion. Chess.com announces the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes. With the world's best chess players.
What? He mouse slips! He mouse slips!
Against Robert Hess's will, now anyone will become a Chess.com world champ. Hey everyone, that's right. We actually are launching the first ever Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, anyone can play, anyone can win, and everyone will have a chance to take home their part in this $1 million cash prize event, because regular prizes will be available even for non-title players. So how do you sign up and how do you play? First, you go to chess.com/verified and complete the application process. Second, you just throw down on the chessboard and play with your fellow chess.com verified members. Dozens of open qualifier events will qualify hundreds of players into the play-in round. After that, 32 victors of the play-in stage will be joined by 32 of the world's best invited for a 64-player epic knockout tournament. The final 8 players will head to Toronto, Canada for a live final where only one will be crowned the first ever Chess.com World Champion. So what are you waiting for? Get ready, get verified, and join us in this first ever Chess.com World Championship.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We have been taking a quick snack break, but there is no time for snacking because we do have a critical moment of the day to discuss. So this is your Coinbase critical moment of the day. Danya,
And
talk us through what's happening on the board.
we pretended that this was a hard decision, but really it wasn't, because one game stands above the rest in terms of its beauty, its complexity, and there's one moment in that game which sort of defined absolutely everything. This is, of course, the last round, the finals matchup between Alexei Sarana and Andrei Esipenko. Both of them had an amazing run to get to this point. Now, Alexei has just sacrificed an exchange. What has he gotten in return for it? First of all, he has a piece. He has a bishop. Second of all, he has Andrei's knight on b1 completely trapped. But it looks like Andrei gets out of it with the move a6. What is the idea? This counterattacks White's knight. And if Alexei had simply taken on b1, after a takes b5, Andrei remains an exchange up, and Alexei has very questionable compensation for it. But instead, the Coinbase critical moment is the amazing move bishop c1 to b2, leaving the knight on b5 on pre. And what is the idea? Well, the idea is that if black takes on b5, White has the incredible tactic queen g7 check, sacking the queen, a double check on f5, and a beautiful mating mechanism on h6, which would work, by the way, without either the light squared bishop or the rook, which makes this even more brilliant. Now, what this move produced is the incredibly weakening f6, after which Alexei, bang, sacrificed on g6. This led to a winning attack, which he then transformed into a winning endgame and converted with exceptional technique. So, Anna, really no question that this was a Coinbase critical moment, which helped Alexei Sarana win the entire thing on the heels of an amazing performance.
An absolutely incredible game, and Alexei Sarana himself said in the interview that this is the game he was truly proud of. He said he was lucky in the earlier matches, but in this final game, he showed his very best when it comes to a game with initiative. He gave an exchange up, he kept sacrificing material for the initiative and for this very strong kingside attack, and he is the winner of this Sunday's Rapid Chess Championship and is the winner of our critical moment by Coinbase.
And as we take one more look at the bracket, we can see who Alexei had to beat. And first of all, of course, Hikaru was defeated by his opponent, Andrei Esipenko, who can hold his head up high. He gained 7 Grand Prix points, a very handsome prize, but it was not meant to be. Alexei's strategy of playing incredibly fast, getting into complex positions and out-calculating, out-intuiting his opponent pays off against Jeffrey, paid off against Dubov. He was incredibly modest, Anna, but let's be real. Good players are lucky, and Alexei, he needed a little bit of luck, but that's what you need to win the RCC. Mostly, he was really good.
Certainly, he has proven to be the strongest this weekend, and I'm sure that we are going to see many more participations by Alexei Sarana, as this has been week 11 of the Rapid Chess Championship, but the tournament continues every single weekend.
Yes, it does. So there's action every Saturday, every Sunday. Your boredom, your Saturday morning boredom has been resolved. You can just stay in bed, put it on the TV, and watch some incredible chess being played. Another week is in the books. I can't believe we've had 11 weeks of this thing. And the reason we've had 11 weeks of this thing is thanks to our main sponsor, presenting sponsor, Coinbase, who makes all of this possible. And once again, I need to remind you that you can earn crypto just by learning about crypto. You can explore DeFi and Web3 with Coinbase Wallet. You can get exclusive rewards when you spend with a Coinbase card. and so much more. To explore all of these awesome features, to make an account, and to read more, just go to coinbase.com/chess. And remember, you can get $10 in Bitcoin when you sign up and verify your account. So we need to do that right now. And I need to get verified on chess.com as well. So it's not time for us then to end the broadcast. And as we look here at the updated Grand Prix leaderboard, Hikaru, he didn't go as far as he wanted to, but he still gains 5 points for making it to the semifinals. And that means he's tied with Fabi for first place.
It's the first time in many, many weeks that Fabi has a competition. He has been cruising through the Rapid Chess Championship and had a huge lead over the rest of the field. But as you pointed out, Danya, Hikaru, even though the tournament didn't go as well as he hoped for, he does catch up with Fabi, and we see Levin Aronian on third place at the moment with 39 GP points.
Yeah, I mean, Aronian has been nothing short of incredible. He didn't play this time. He's participating in the American Cup, but you can be sure to see him next weekend. Excited to see what the next weekend will bring. Every weekend brings a completely different dynamic, a different winner most of the time, and equally brilliant games every weekend. So it was a pleasure watching, and it was a pleasure covering this with you. I had such a good time today.
Thank you so much, Danya. And likewise, I was gonna add to the brilliant players and brilliant games, and we always have brilliant analysis thanks to grandmasters like Danya, who not only bring the chess analysis and knowledge on board, but also great impersonations. I want to know more about all those acting skills, and we definitely need to make the battle happen. I don't know what name to come up with. It would be like a rap battle, but it's an impersonation battle between you and Spenny. I'm working on it. It's bound to happen.
It definitely is. And thanks again to Spenny for the insights and the appearances, the voice of the chat, and everybody in the chat as well for supporting your favorite player. And Bick. I got to thank Bick. Otherwise, he'll feel bad, right?
Shout out to our producer and the whole team of chess.com working behind the scenes so hard on every single event of the chess.com Rapid Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. Long name, but I think I got through it. Thanks so much to each and every one of you tuning in. And without further ado, let's raid, because we do like to raid, and we'll see you guys next Saturday again.
Blue check marks. Everybody loves blue check marks. Chess.com is excited to launch its own blue check mark today with our verified members program. And for the first time, for any online platform anywhere, there will be a transparent and clear process to how you become verified and get that blue check mark. Any Chess.com member can become verified by having their account linked to a real identity with a unique payment form and SMS held privately in their profile. Most importantly, applicants must pass a comprehensive fair play screening in order to get verified. All right, but besides the blue check mark, why should you become verified? First and foremost, all verified players are eligible to play in the Chess.com World Championship. With $1 million in prizes, including regular cash prizes for non-titled members, this massive and historic event has but one cost of entry: your $15 verification fee in order to become verified. Additionally, other verified benefits will include access to regular verified-only events, listing on verified-only leaderboards, priority pairings against other verified-only members, and more. To learn more about how to become verified, if you're watching this during one of our live shows, use the command verified in chat. Or if you're watching it anywhere else, go to chess.com/verified today and go get that beautiful butterfly. Blue check mark.